The King's Avatar audiobook by Kevin Chapter 1661. Too smooth isn't good either. Translator. Namyumi Editor. Namyumi. This was already Joe Zekai's fourth match in the group arena. But even when Cloud Piercer had been trapped by Dancing Rain's powerful firing line, he had never been in such a passive state before. He himself had chosen to have Cloud Piercer enter Dancing Rain's firing line. He himself had chosen to charge through Suma Cheng's barrage. He himself had chosen to put himself in a predicament, demanding that he broke through it. But not this time. In this chaotic battlefield, Fang Rui crafted meticulously calculated plans. As soon as he saw an opening, he would utilize every resource that he had to seize it. There was also his dirty playstyle that was impossible to grasp. All those added together finally put a stop to Joe Zekai. It was the first time in this group arena that Joe Zekai was completely out of options. He had no way to escape from this predicament. Cloud Piercer was trapped. From Boundless Sea's Dragon Wave, from a Berserker NPC's Destruction Slash, from a Warlock NPC's Grasping Ghosts, a Spitfire NPC's Unknown Grenade, a Witch NPC's Acid Rain, the Battle Mage NPC that had missed the Dragon Breaks the Ranks was turning back around. Countless close-ranged classes were charging over aggressively. There were no openings. There was no way out. Besides taking this wave of attacks, nothing else could be done. The flames from the Firebird had yet to recede. Sparks of fire still floated in the air. In an instant, the sparks were swallowed into nothingness by the incoming attacks. And although Cloud Piercer could no longer be seen with all the explosions and light everywhere, everyone could see that he still existed from his rapidly falling health. The NPCs weren't very strong, but there were a lot of them. With so many attacks gathered together in one area, how could the damage not be terrifying? Whether it had been the match between Ye Xiu and Sun Xiang, or the match where Mo Fan triggered the NPC ambush from above, none of them had taken so many attacks all at once. Fang Rui had fully taken advantage of the chaos. With one move, he threw Cloud Piercer into the abyss. But Fang Rui didn't relax yet. Many of the NPCs were still throwing attacks at Boundless Sea. As he ran around, he paid close attention to any movements from Joe Zekai. This wave of attacks would inflict heavy damage onto Cloud Piercer, but it wouldn't be enough to kill him. And the NPC attacks wouldn't be as focused and calculated as a player's. There would certainly be an opening after the wave was over. Joe Zekai would definitely want to escape through this opening. Fang Rui needed to find a way to patch up this gap. Papa, gunfire. Sure enough, after the wave of attacks, Joe Zekai made his move. With a roundhouse kick, he swept away the 4 NPCs closest to him. Several gunshots followed one after the other. Joe Zekai didn't hold back, activating rapid firing to fire off as many shots as possible. At the same time, firearm martial arts. With buffs from rapid firing and firearm martial arts, Cloud Piercer's movements became incomparably quick. Then he went for the hole that he had opened up and saw Fang Rui's Boundless Sea. As expected, Joe Zekai wasn't surprised. He had pretty much grasped Fang Rui's plans. He knew that his biggest obstacle in escaping this predicament was Fang Rui. It was similar to the previous match against Mo Fan. Deception had drawn the aggro from the NPCs, but the one who made it the most difficult for Mo Fan was Joe Zekai's Cloud Piercer. Spiral Chi Rush. Boundless Sea took a step forward and pushed with his palms, sending out a wave of chi. The opening that Cloud Piercer had created for himself was instantly patched up with spinning chi. Cloud Piercer couldn't continue forward. However, there were no ways out from the rear, left, or right either. The NPCs had them blocked. Where could he run to? Joe Zekai was once again helpless this fast. Many people had this thought, but not Joe Zekai. It looked like there was nowhere to run, but Cloud Piercer retreated a third of a step backwards. Cloud Piercer raised his guns and fired. Bang! The gunshot was unusually loud and the bullet looked to be quite big. Anyone who had a sense of how fast a bullet typically moved would know that this bullet was moving very slowly. Stun bullet. It was a Spitfire low-level skill. However, the stun effect was too useful. It was similar to a freeze. The stun would interrupt and lock up the target's movements and skills. This was why the skill was loud and slow. It had been intentionally designed to make the attack difficult to land. Zhou Zekai had only moved back a third of a step to get off this shot. It could be seen that the distance between Cloud Piercer and Boundless Sea was extremely close. No matter how slow the stun bullet moved, it would cross that distance in just an instant. Zhou Zekai had once again pulled off what everyone had thought was impossible. It was almost infuriating to watch. And because of how easy it was to recognize stun bullet, Fang Rui knew how troublesome this attack would be. If he continued with the Spiral Chi Rush, the stun bullet would interrupt it. The interrupt wasn't so bad, but the stun being stunned when facing the attacks of so many NPCs would be a death sentence. He had to dodge it. Boundless Sea quickly twisted to the side and lowered himself. Fang Rui did everything he could to dodge the bullet, but it was useless. The distance was too close. Zhou Zekai's aim was too poisonous. Boundless Sea had moved before he was hit, but he wasn't able to dodge it. The bullet simply didn't land exactly where he wanted it to land, that's all. The skill effect didn't care about that though. Boundless Sea went rigid. He wouldn't be able to dodge the NPC skills coming after him. Zhou Zekai obviously wasn't going to show him any sympathy. Seizing this opportunity, Cloud Piercer rushed out, but to his surprise, a scythe came swinging at him from where Boundless Sea had turned away from. Zhou Zekai was startled. He wanted to dodge, but the area covered by the scythe was too large. There was only a third of a step between them. With the NPCs so close, there was no room to run. Hit. A talisman glowing with the symbol Chinese letter flew out and attached to Cloud Piercer. If a scythe with a talisman effect landed, it could not be dodged. The Chinese letter symbol, immobilizing talisman, Cloud Piercer was unable to move. At least compared to Boundless Sea, he could still attack. But for a gunner, relying on just attacks to push off an incoming enemy was impossible. Fang Rui wasn't able to avoid Zhou Zekai's terrifying precision, but Zhou Zekai wasn't able to avoid Fang Rui's follow-up. The stadium screens focused on the two players. Both were smiling bitterly. The storm of attacks instantly swallowed the two characters. Boundless Sea was stunned, unable to move in any way. Cloud Piercer was only immobilized. He could still attack, and was trying his hardest to fend off against the enemies so he could survive longer. Crowd control effects wouldn't last too long, but these short few seconds felt endless to the two of them. Who would recover first? This became a crucial question. Zhou Zekai knew that his stun bullet should last 4 seconds. Accounting for the stats on Boundless Sea, the stun would be reduced to at least 2-3 seconds. As for the NPC's immobilization talisman, the effects couldn't be too strong. In the end, Cloud Piercer should be immobilized for around 3.5 seconds. Boundless Sea should recover before Cloud Piercer did, but Cloud Piercer wasn't stunned and could still attack. This would help him defend against Boundless Sea. Zhou Zekai could only hope that there would be no interference from the NPCs during that time. He wasn't able to move, and he was helpless against many of the incoming attacks. He could only bet on luck. 1 second, 2 seconds, Zhou Zekai paid close attention to Boundless Sea. 2.5 seconds, Boundless Sea recovered. Fang Rui also knew that this was a key moment. He could already see Cloud Piercer aiming at him. Fang Rui hastily had Boundless Sea curl up. He thanked the NPCs around him. They were being good partners right now, providing him with exceptional cover. He flipped over his palms and gathered chi. Boundless Sea wanted to strike Cloud Piercer along with the NPCs. Cloud Piercer didn't have much health left. If he was able to land this sort of attack, it would be his win. But Fang Rui didn't realize that there was actually a small opening in the cover provided by the NPCs. The opening was very small, perhaps enough for a single bullet to go through. But it was an opening that Cloud Piercer could use. Bang! A gunshot. Joe Zekai saw this small opening. There was no time to hesitate. He immediately aimed and fired. The bullet pierced through the crowd. If he was just slightly off, the bullet would hit an NPC and he wouldn't be able to interrupt Boundless Sea's attack. But his aim was on point. Pooh! Blood spurted out. A bullet pierced through this tiny opening, interrupting Boundless Sea's attack. At the same time, it made it so that Boundless Sea wasn't able to dodge an incoming NPC attack. Perfect. Cloud Piercer finally recovered from the immobilization talisman, but at this moment light glowed from underneath his feet. A pillar of light shot towards the sky. Joe Zekai hastily tried to get away, but he wasn't able to. Hexagram Prison. A warlock NPC's attack. If Joe Zekai hadn't been paying attention to Fang Rui, if he hadn't needed to focus all his attention to attack through that small opening, perhaps he wouldn't have overlooked such a powerful CC attack and would have instead had Cloud Piercer interrupt the warlock's cast. Sure enough, things going too smoothly against Fang Rui wasn't a good sign. As Joe Zekai thought about this, Cloud Piercer was swallowed by another wave of NPC attacks and was killed. Group Arena, 5th round, Fang Rui won. Chapter 1662, Fighting to Go First. Chapter 1662, Fighting to Go First. Translator, Namiyami. Editor, Namiyami. In the end, Joe Zekai lost. Joe Zekai had been Samsara's second player in the group arena. His first match was against Happy's first player, Ye Xiu, before finally falling to Happy's fourth player, Fang Rui. Even so, the fans on Samsara didn't feel satisfied. They felt that it was somewhat of a pity. They really thought that Joe Zekai was playing well enough to pull off a 1v4. Unfortunately, he ended up losing to Fang Rui. He got caught in the trap. The Samsara fans all had the same thought. Fang Rui was truly too cunning. Just take a look at the post-fight numbers. Cloud Piercer had started the fight with 45% of his health, and how much damage did Boundless Sea deal? 13%. What did this mean? It meant that Cloud Piercer had lost 32% of his health to NPCs. An unfair advantage. The Samsara fans were furious, choosing to forget about Joe Zekai's fight with Mo Fan. In that fight, the post-fight statistics showed that Joe Zekai's Cloud Piercer only dealt a total of 23% of Deception's health. The other 77% had been lost to NPCs. Under similar circumstances, players would always take advantage of what they could. It was just that in the Joe Zekai vs. Mo Fan match, the situation allowed for Joe Zekai to more easily suppress his opponent. In the Fang Rui vs. Joe Zekai match, what Fang Rui needed to do was far more complicated. As a result, even though the outcome was the same, it seemed much more difficult for Fang Rui to achieve. It was hard not to have a different impression of the fight. Fans would always be in defense of their idols. For Samsara's fans, it was almost to the point of shedding tears for his grievances. But after seeing Joe Zekai walk out from the player booth, everyone immediately stood up and applauded crazily. Even though it was too bad that it wasn't a 1v4, it was still a 1v3. It was still an unprecedented achievement in the finals. Another brushstroke was added to Joe Zekai's name in the history books. Joe Zekai didn't look to talk, but he wasn't like Mo Fan, who would completely ignore everyone else. As the fans cheered his name, he waved his hands towards them as he walked down from the stage. The players on Samsara also stood up and applauded to welcome their captain back. They were tired of praising him at this point and actually started complaining. "You're so fierce, what's there left for us to do? So you can take care of the team competition by yourself, right? Ha ha." Joe Zekai just laughed, but he didn't say anything. Everyone stopped joking around and quickly began discussing who to send for the next fight. "My turn," Lu Boyuan volunteered to go up. In the previous team competition, he and Du Ming had tried to pincer Fang Rui in an alleyway, but Du Ming ended up being the one trapped there. At that time, he could only watch helplessly as his friend was killed. He had already been holding it in by then. Later on in the team competition, he and Fang Minghua had been stalled by Fang Rui alone for an unbelievable amount of time. Fang Minghua was a healer who needed to be protected by him, but let alone push away Fang Rui. He hadn't even been able to get Fang Minghua's laughing song to escape. He had lost badly to Suma Cheng in the previous group, Arena 2. Lu Boyuan knew that he had been a huge reason for Samsara's defeat last game. During these 2 days, Lu Boyuan would often think about his time in Season 8. That season's final had been the pinnacle of his professional career. Through his incredible plays, he helped Samsara take down Blue Rain to win the team their first championship trophy. After that final, Lu Boyuan's spot as a top player and an all-star had been established. But now, his chaotic Cloudy Mountains had even better stats than before. At that time, when speaking of Glory's #1 grappler, it wasn't him, but Tiny Herb's Flying Drops. Later on, in order to help strengthen his chaotic Cloudy Mountains, the team purchased the famous Flying Drops and dismantled him for his equipment. Lu Boyuan's character had gotten stronger, more famous, but why was he playing worse? Why? Was it because his desire for victory wasn't as great as before? Was it because he had gotten complacent after winning 2 championships? No, definitely not. He wanted more championship victories, more glory. How could just 2 be enough? Lu Boyuan burned with fighting spirit. Seeing Fang Rui on stage, his thirst for battle was stronger than ever. He wasn't the only one who wanted to go up. Du Ming had been playing spectacularly last game, but he ended up losing to Fang Rui in the group arena. The team competition had been even more frustrating. Seeing Fang Rui on stage, he wanted revenge. Plus, after beating Fang Rui, Happy's next player should be that person, no. Thinking of this, Du Ming started getting impatient. Lu Boyuan had just said that he wanted to go when Du Ming interrupted. My turn, my turn. My turn. Lu Boyuan glared at Du Ming. Me. Du Ming ignored him. Who played next wouldn't be decided by just the 2 of them. He wasn't going to bicker with Lu Boyuan. Du Ming looked eagerly towards his captain, vice-captain, and even Fang Minghua. The people with the most authority on the team was their captain and vice-captain, of course. But number 3 wasn't the talented Sun Xiang nor their other all-star, Lu Boyuan, but Fang Minghua. Although he was the least famous among Samsara's main roster, he was the most senior member in Samsara. He had started in Season 4, a part of the Golden Generation. That season had too many astonishingly talented rookies, overshadowing many other excellent rookies. Fang Minghua had been one of the nobodies of Season 4. He had joined Samsara and became a part of the main roster. In the blink of an eye, 7 years had passed. The radiance of the geniuses of the Golden Generation shined brighter than ever. Huang Xiaoshan, Yu Wenzhou, Zhang Xinji, Chu Yunxiu, Suma Cheng, Li Xuan. Who hadn't heard of them? Yet for all their fame, who among those in that generation had the most championships wins, the greatest glory of them all? Within these 7 years, the Season 4 players who had won the most championships as main roster players weren't Huang Xiaoshan, or Zhang Xinji, or Chu Yunxiu. It was Ye Xiu. It was Fang Minghua. Ye Xiu had been considered a member of the Golden Generation, an all-star player, winning 2 championships together with Tiny Herb. But he ended up being the first among the Golden Generation to fall. After transferring to Team 301, he completely lost his luster. Within 2 seasons, he quickly became one of the forgotten. But Fang Minghua wasn't a member of the Golden Generation. He had been a mediocre rookie in Season 4, but he was the one who got the last laugh. As the healer, he won 2 consecutive championships in Season 8 and Season 9. He was on his way towards the teams and his 3rd championship win. He wasn't as famous as those in the golden generation, but as Samsara's healer for 7 years, his seniority in the team wasn't low. Because apart from just being there for 7 years, his contributions towards Samsara were well received. He had been the one to strongly recommend Joe Zekai to Team Samsara. He had believed that Joe Zekai was a player who could not be let go no matter the cost. At that time, Samsara's sharpshooter was their captain, Zhang Yue, and he wasn't nearly as confident in Joe Zekai's potential. It was under Fang Minghua's relentless insistence that Samsara made the decision to take Joe Zekai. There were even rumors that his firm stance made Samsara's captain Zhang Yue extremely displeased with him. However, Joe Zekai soon proved that Fang Minghua's opinion hadn't been an overstatement. In Season 6, when Fang Minghua recommended Jiang Badao, the team highly valued his opinion. That winter transfer season, they decisively purchased Jiang Badao. And once again, Fang Minghua had found another incredible player for Samsara. This mediocre rookie of Season 4 had helped the team wholeheartedly. He had seniority. He had contributed much to the team through great efforts, but he never showed off. He wasn't the captain. He wasn't the vice-captain, but no one on Samsara would ever disregard his opinions, and he had always done his utmost from beginning to end. He hadn't changed these 7 years. Even if he offended the captain and the core player, he would never give up on his viewpoint. If he had a recommendation, he would never hide it. "I think Lu Boyuan should go," Fang Minghua said. Chapter 1663 3% Chapter 1663 3% Translator Namyami Editor Namyami Fang Rui sat in the player booth, quietly waiting for his next opponent. I won, and it was against Joe Zekai. He had ended Joe Zekai's win streak. To many, Fang Rui had already done something worthy of pride, but Fang Rui wasn't satisfied. Joe Zekai, so what? Did beating him mean that they had won the finals? No. Not only did it not guarantee them the championship trophy, it didn't even guarantee them the group arena. To Fang Rui, Joe Zekai was just Samsara's second player in the group arena. Yes, he was formidable and difficult to defeat, but more importantly, after him was Samsara's third player. If he beat him, it would only be another small step towards victory. There were even more obstacles that needed to be passed. What was there to be happy about? He was still far from being happy or proud. Next, his goal was to beat the next one. After that, it would be the next one, and then the next one. His thirst for victory would never falter. It was only by constantly beating the next person would he be able to stand on the final podium. So who's next? Come. The next one came. Samsara's third player was Lu Boyuan. In the end, Samsara went with Fang Minghua's recommendation. All of Team Samsara trusted him deeply. This didn't mean that he held the most authority on the team, or that he was taking advantage of his contributions to the team. It was the exact opposite. Everyone respected that he never made a display of these 2 points. He was someone who always judged the matter as it stood, using reasoning to persuade others. Lu Boyuan had his wish fulfilled. He had been overjoyed at having the opportunity to go on stage, but he quickly calmed himself down. By the time he made it to the player booth and loaded into the game, he had let reason take over him. The match officially began. One side was a Chi master, the other side was a grappler. This was a battle between 2 fighters. Lu Boyuan's grappler, Chaotic Cloudy Mountain, came in full of energy. As for Fang Rui's Chi master, Boundless Sea, even though he had won against Joe Zekai's Cloud Piercer, he had lost 47% of his health left. He still had 53% left. After all, Boundless Sea had been under pressure from the NPCs the entire time. It was impossible for him not to have lost any health in the process, yet he had won under these conditions. It was true that it was intentional, but it still made everyone look at him with a whole new level of respect. If they had been the ones playing, would they have been able to do it? However, for this match, it didn't look like Fang Rui planned on doing the same thing. After the match began, his Boundless Sea charged out. beat his opponent, and then move on to the next one. Fang Rui only had this one thought. He knew clearly that he wouldn't be able to do much more in today's decisive game. Even though he had only been against someone with 45% of his health left in the previous fight, it had exhausted him. The strategy that he had chosen had increased the weight of the burden on him. Whether it was his character's health or his own energy, the chaotic battle that he had placed himself in was much more exhausting than a normal one. His condition hadn't been great to begin with either. He felt the fatigue. He could feel his focus slipping, but he persisted. He had beaten Joe Zekai, and now he was going to beat his next opponent, because he knew that this would be his last fight this season. How far he could go would be how far he went. Today, he probably wouldn't be able to fully recover. He probably wouldn't be able to help the team in the more important team competition coming up. Fang Rui was unsatisfied, extremely unsatisfied. He was Happy's highest paid player with Happy's strongest character. He would never forget that. But when the team needed him the most in their most crucial game of the season, he couldn't help. Fang Rui hated this feeling. He truly, truly loathed it. But he couldn't be rash. He didn't think about trying to persevere for the team competition. Because from the start, he had known exactly how much he would be able to contribute in today's match. He had originally planned on saving his energy in the group arena and coming out in the more important team competition. But right now, he could no longer play at 100% for the team competition. He was afraid that he would instead become the team's burden. As a result, all that remained was the present, the group arena. How much he would be able to contribute would be how much he contributed. This here would be his everything. The two characters met in the middle of the canyon. Lu Boyuan was eager to battle. Fang Rui didn't delay because he knew that his condition wouldn't get any better with just a few seconds of rest. He wanted to do everything he could while he still had the ability to. Forward. Boundless Sea continued forward, but chaotic Cloudy Mountain didn't cower either. The two sides grew nearer and nearer. As a Chi master, he could have started attacking a while ago, but he didn't. He wasn't planning on engaging in close combat, was he? Of the four fighter classes, Chi masters were the weakest at close combat. On the other hand, strikers and grapplers held the top ranks among all the classes in glory. Fang Rui couldn't possibly think about fighting up close. What was he scheming? Everyone was thinking the same thing, including Lu Boyuan. A player like Fang Rui didn't feel trustworthy. What you saw on the surface was always fake. Lu Boyuan didn't even dare to blink. He stared intently at the approaching enemy. Roll, Boundless Sea suddenly rolled. Chaotic Cloudy Mountains hadn't attacked. He wasn't close enough, yet Boundless Sea looked as if he were dodging frantically. The scheme is coming, everyone thought, including Lu Boyuan. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain immediately made a move. He jumped to the side. Who cared what Boundless Sea was scheming? Moving unpredictably would always be safe. But Boundless Sea didn't do anything. The roll just seemed to be a normal roll. Lu Boyuan kept up his guard. Wasn't it normal to see Fang Rui do something puzzling? He couldn't be careless for even a second, but he still had to try to take the initiative. Lu Boyuan kept his guard up while chaotic Cloudy Mountain approached. Grapplers had to get up close to attack. Boundless Sea rolled again. This time, it wasn't forward or to the left or to the right, but backwards. The broadcast and the stadium screens immediately zoomed in on Boundless Sea. Everyone thought that Fang Rui was definitely scheming something just like the last roll. There hadn't been anything last time. But this time, Fang Rui didn't let them down. During his roll, Boundless Sea sneakily rubbed his palms together. Lu Boyuan couldn't see it, but the spectators watching carefully could. Everyone suddenly felt a moment of "I know what's going to happen next," but even if they knew, it wouldn't be of any use. A Chi blade flew out. Boundless Sea kept rolling, changing direction slightly. How devious! The spectators who noticed Boundless Sea's sneaky Chi blade immediately knew what Boundless Sea's goal was. His Chi blade hadn't been aimed towards chaotic Cloudy Mountain, but with boundless sea changing direction. If Lu Boyuan followed along and chased after him, the Qi blade would be perfect. The Qi blade and boundless sea's change of direction had been linked together closely. The angle was even more dirty. If Lu Boyuan was watching his movements carefully, if Lu Boyuan kept up with his tempo and adjusted accordingly, the Qi blade would be very easy to overlook. So, was focusing too hard, reacting too fast, a mistake against Fang Rui. Unfortunately for Lu Boyuan, he committed this mistake. He had been eager to fight, but he maintained his calm. He also made sure to be attentive and to react fast. He was playing incredibly well, but that resulted in him getting hit. Qi blade. He only noticed it when the attack landed. A mark from the Qi blade appeared on chaotic Cloudy Mountain's body. Everyone felt sorry for Lu Boyuan. Qi blade had a knockback. Lu Boyuan's rhythm was interrupted, and the reason was because he was playing too well, but everyone soon realized that chaotic Cloudy Mountain's rhythm hadn't been disrupted by the attack. The step he had been taking was the step he took. Oh, everyone realized what it was. Reinforced iron bones. Lu Boyuan had already activated reinforced iron bones. When the replay from his perspective was shown, it turned out that he indeed hadn't seen that Qi blade. Lu Boyuan had reacted too fast and adjusted too quickly. However, he had activated reinforced iron bones earlier. He seemed to have predicted that he would definitely fall for Fang Rui's dirty trick and get hit. Hit me all you want, but don't think that'll stop my advance. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain marched forward resolutely. The Samsara crowd erupted with wild applause. 3. At this moment the number 3 popped up in the public chat. The sender was Boundless Sea Fang Rui. 3. What did that mean? Everyone stared blankly at the number. Was he intentionally making things mysterious again? Ignore it, kill him. The crowd once again erupted into shouts. It was 3% in the stadium at a remote and inconspicuous corner which wasn't even considered a seat. There was a person standing there, watching the match. He saw through what the 3 meant. If someone looked back to see who he was, they would probably recognize him instantly. It was Lin Jingyan who had announced his retirement after the semi-finals. Team Wind Howl's Lin Jingyan, Team Tyranny's Lin Jingyan. It didn't matter what team he was on or if he was retired. He was the person who understood Fang Rui the best. 3. It was 3%. The damage that the Qi blade had dealt was 3%. Fang Rui was keeping track of his damage dealt. He was using this method to record how much he contributed to today's match. Chapter 1664. It ends here. Chapter 1664. It ends here. Translator. Namiyami Editor. Namiyami roll, jump, crawl. Fang Rui was like a fish in the water, moving around freely no matter how shameful it looked. Lu Boyuan's chaotic Cloudy Mountain stepped forward with reinforced iron bones active, but in the end, Fang Rui was able to escape. And after seeing that chaotic Cloudy Mountain had activated reinforced iron bones, he took advantage of it to throw out 2 skills without any concealment. Reinforced iron bones was valuable for its super armor buff, and super armor was valuable for allowing the user to ignore incoming enemy attacks. If you dodged and hid yourself while using reinforced iron bones, then you were wasting the super armor. 5-6 more numbers appeared in the public chat from Fang Rui. No one had thought anything of the previous 3, but after seeing this 5 and 6, people were finally beginning to catch on. Is he counting how much damage he's dealing? How dirty, everyone sighed. This time, even the pro players thought that Fang Rui was using his dirtiness to engage in a psychological battle, listing out every damage he dealt to increase the mental pressure on his opponent. It obviously wasn't wrong to think this, and it was indeed something Fang Rui would do. But today it wasn't actually his intention. He was simply using it as a way to remind himself to keep himself focused. Soon afterwards, 2 more attacks landed on chaotic Cloudy Mountain. The number jumped to 9. His attacks weren't anything special. He was taking advantage of the fact that Lu Boyuan wouldn't give up on trying to take the initiative with reinforced iron bones activated. If you want to give up, I'll help you give up. But if you don't, then sorry, I won't keep you company. 5 attacks had dealt 9%, but Lu Boyuan's chaotic Cloudy Mountain had closed the distance considerably. Fang Rui wasn't greedy. He immediately stopped attacking and focused on running away. Suddenly, chaotic Cloudy Mountain flickered, closing the distance at an extraordinary speed. Cloud Body. Many of the viewers immediately thought of this movement skill. It was the striker's movement skill, Cloud Body, and the skill that Lu Boyuan had placed on his weapon. The skill placed on a pro player's weapon wasn't easy to predict. Since there was no way to guard against it, its first usage in a match would always be extremely effective. Relying on this surprise move, the bit of distance between them was instantly closed. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's 2 hands reached out to grab Boundless Sea. In the previous moment, Boundless Sea had been focused on escaping. In the next moment, he suddenly turned around and threw out a palm. The attack was too fast, too close. It couldn't be dodged, but Lu Boyuan didn't care too much. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain still had reinforced iron bones active. That sort of instinctive attack wouldn't be able to stop him. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's 2 hands went for the grab when his body suddenly lifted into the air. Qigong Blast. It had just seemed to be an instinctive counterattack, but it turned out to be the Qi Master's level 70 skill, Qigong Blast. The Qi surged through chaotic Cloudy Mountain's body and wreaked havoc inside. The leather armor on him seemed like it was about to split apart from the outward pressure. A level 70 skill couldn't be used so easily. Fang Rui had planned this ahead of time. He had pretended to run away, but in actuality, he had been waiting for chaotic Cloudy Mountain to come. He didn't care if chaotic Cloudy Mountain used a movement skill like Cloud Body. No matter what happened, Lu Boyuan would want to get close to him as fast as possible. This point would never be wrong. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was hit. However, even Qigong Blast couldn't break through super armor. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was able to get a hold of Boundless Sea in the end. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain lifted Boundless Sea up and tossed him into the air, the low-level skill fling. The grabs had begun. However, at the same time, his Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's health slid down by a large chunk. Reinforced iron bones only increased the user's physical defense. However, Qi Master attacks dealt magic damage. The defense buff from reinforced iron bones was useless. 18. Boundless Sea had been tossed into the air, but Fang Rui was still counting. The damage from this level 70 skill dealt more damage than the previous 5 attacks combined. However, the one with the initiative was Lu Boyuan. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain threw Boundless Sea around like a doll. At the same time, he also reported his damage numbers in the public chat. 3, 6, 11, 15. 4 skills, 4 numbers. Grappler skills were powerful. These 4 skills dealt nearly as much damage as a Qi Master's 5 attacks plus a level 70 skill. He wasn't done yet either. Spiraling Whirlwind. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain ended his grappler combi with a level 70 skill. Due to the high grab priority, Fang Rui had no way to escape it. Boundless Sea spun in the air as he crashed to the ground with a boom that echoed through the canyon. 25. Lu Boyuan reported another number. This was the total damage dealt from a single combo, far more than the 18% that Boundless Sea had bitterly built up. This was a grappler. Due to the high priority of grabs, if a grappler could get a single attack to land, the opponent would find it nearly impossible to escape. Grapplers never had long combos, but each attack was extremely powerful. No other class had this sort of consistency in their combos. After the final hit, Chaotic Cloudy Mountain jumped away. Fang Rui had seen through Lu Boyuan's intentions and racked up damage, even getting in a level 70 attack. But so what? In the end, he hadn't been able to control the situation. After the fierce grappler combo, Lu Boyuan was the one who had the advantage. Lu Boyuan had hit back, taking out 25% of Boundless Sea's health. If Fang Rui had been trying to put pressure on his opponent by reporting the damage that he dealt, then it had the opposite effect. With such a powerful counterattack from Lu Boyuan, the one feeling the pressure would be Fang Rui. The dirty method backfired. For the Samsara fans, it was a joyous scene. Pan Lin and Li Yibo also praised Lu Boyuan's counterattack. The spectating pro players all felt that compared to the 25% health lost, the pressure from this counterattack was even more terrifying. Boundless Sea started rolling around on the ground again. He didn't stand up. He just continued to roll. Fang Rui had started his annoying and unsightly movements again. Chi Bullet, Chaotic Cloudy Mountain easily dodged it. Cloud Pushing Palm, Cloud Splitting Palm skills poured out. Fang Rui was practically playing the cooldown game, using all sorts of weak, low-level skills. These skills had low cooldowns and fast startups. With so many attacks being thrown out, it indeed wasn't easy to defend against. But so what if it was hard to defend against? A Chi bullet hit Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. The Chi exploded, but his momentum wasn't impacted at all. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain continued to search for an opportunity to get close to Boundless Sea. 19. Another number in the public chat. After a long struggle, Fang Rui was able to get in a single Chi bullet, but it had practically zero effect on the battle, dealing only 1%. But Fang Rui recorded it anyways. Even with this 1%, he had only dealt a total of 19%. Still not enough to catch up to Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's 25%. However, Fang Rui didn't seem to have noticed the 25% he took. He was still carefully keeping track of his damage. 21. After some more back and forth, he finally got another 2%. He didn't feel any pressure from Lu Boyuan's counterattack. The only thing on his mind was his own numbers. Even when Lu Boyuan had typed out 3, 6, 11, 15, 25 during the grappler combo, Fang Rui was only looking at the 18. The number that Lu Boyuan had surpassed in one combo. 19, 21, Fang Rui carefully and patiently increased this number. There was nothing else on his mind. 24, 28, 25 had been passed, but the thought never crossed Fang Rui's mind because he hadn't even seen the 25. 31. Another successful hit. The stadium was silent. In everyone's eyes, the attacks from Fang Rui couldn't be considered as an offensive play. One attack would just be one attack. This sort of mindless fighting was too amateurish in the eyes of the pro players. But this amateurish fighting was actually frustrating Lu Boyuan. For Lu Boyuan, he couldn't read Fang Rui. Lu Boyuan's intuition and experience couldn't be used against this sort of strategy. Fang Rui's playing was pure and simple. Tactics, schemes, psychological warfare. All of these things had been tossed out by him because he didn't have the energy to think about any of it. After 31, 32, another 1% damage. Fang Rui counted it. It was a strategy with no thought to it, and it felt deeply oppressive. Lu Boyuan's Chaotic Cloudy Mountain chased after Boundless Sea fiercely, but he just couldn't grab him. All of a sudden, Boundless Sea would nick him with a tiny poke. Everyone was staring intently at Chaotic Cloudy Mountain, two hands, waiting for them to grab Boundless Sea, but that moment never happened. Finally, the NPCs on the two ends spawned and began charging towards each other. None of the two characters were the focus of the NPCs, but it was hard not to be implicated in their battle. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain and Boundless Sea were dodging the NPC attacks, but as they dodged, they would constantly be looking for openings to attack. 35. Amidst the chaos, Fang Rui was able to land an attack. The chaos also increased the number of variables being changed. In the end, Lu Boyuan was able to find an opening. 29. He typed out the total damage dealt after this blow, but this time, because of interference from the NPCs, he wasn't able to continue the combo. Boundless Sea was thrown to the ground, not crashing into any NPCs. Lu Boyuan had done this on purpose. The two had been entangled in the battle between the NPCs for a while. Each of them had gotten in a blow on the other, but neither of them had aggroed the NPCs. From this perspective, Chaotic Cloudy Mountain had the advantage. Grappler attacks had to be done at point-blank range. It was practically impossible for him to accidentally hit an NPC. Boundless Sea was different, though. Chi Masters had quite a few mid-ranged attacks. His situation was very similar to Zhou Zekai's situation last round. Fang Rui wanted to attack Lu Boyuan, but he also didn't want to hit an NPC. Fighting from a distance was harder than fighting up close, and compared to Chaotic Cloudy Mountain, Boundless Sea was fighting from a distance. Even so, Fang Rui was still proactive. Boundless Sea weaved in and out through the NPC crowd, searching for an opportunity. Lu Boyuan thought that he had the upper hand. He had even been afraid that Fang Rui would run away, although that never happened. Fang Rui's Boundless Sea was firmly locked onto him. 39. Lu Boyuan made a careless mistake and was hit by another attack from Boundless Sea. A new number appeared. Does he want to count up to 100? It was still far from 100, but Lu Boyuan was certain. How could he know that 100 wasn't Fang Rui's goal? Fang Rui didn't have a fixed goal. The more the better. 41, 45, 47, 50, 50, half his health. Not a single attack made anyone feel like Fang Rui had the upper hand, but even so, he had already taken out half of Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's health. As for Lu Boyuan, after his powerful 25% counterattack, he was only able to get in one more 4% attack. I'm being toyed with by Fang Rui again. Lu Boyuan couldn't keep himself calm. In the end, he was a rather emotional player. When he was playing well, he could make explosive plays one after the other. But when he tilted, his playing would likely falter. In today's match, he had strengthened his resolve. When he came on stage, he carefully sorted out this resolve so he wouldn't be impulsive. He had suppressed his emotions. He needed to be rational, calm, but Fang Rui's annoying strategy had truly made him lose his temper. His emotions were in an awful state. He just wanted to vent, to explode with anger. And when Fang Rui counted to 50, his base line was finally shattered. Unable to endure it any longer, Chaotic Cloudy Mountain suddenly made a move. Spiraling Whirlwind. The level 70 skill made its appearance again, but this time, Boundless Sea wasn't in his grasp. His hands grabbed nothing but air. The centripetal force generated from this attack would suck in nearby enemies, but Boundless Sea was a bit too far. With a roll, Boundless Sea escaped. Lu Boyuan didn't stop, launching a group of NPCs into the air. Boom! Like a meteor, he crashed to the ground, spinning like a tornado. All the nearby NPCs were dragged into the whirlwind, falling down like raindrops. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain had provoked the NPCs on both sides. Suddenly, all sorts of attacks were thrown towards him. The attacks were aimed at Chaotic Cloudy Mountain, but they wouldn't purposefully avoid Boundless Sea. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain dashed towards Boundless Sea. Previously, he had to be careful to avoid the NPCs. This time, he wasn't going to avoid them anymore. Lu Boyuan was going to sweep aside any NPCs in his way. Pa! A chi bullet exploded. 51. Fang Rui counted again. Lu Boyuan threw all caution to the wind. As Chaotic Cloudy Mountain charged forward, he tossed every nearby NPC towards Boundless Sea. Fling, spinning throw, back throw. For a moment, he had turned into a long-ranged attacker. The NPCs nearby were his ammunition. Boundless Sea ran. The incoming NPCs were blocked by other NPCs. Lu Boyuan had made things even more chaotic. 54. Fang Rui was still calm, using every opportunity he saw to get in a hit. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain didn't waver. Reinforced iron bones. He had activated it again. This time, he was really planning on just barging through everything in his path. A nearby NPC swung his sword at Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain didn't dodge. He leapt into the air. Aerial twist. His two legs latched onto the NPC's neck. With a twist, the NPC was thrown into the air. Before the NPC landed, Chaotic Cloudy Mountain let go and then latched onto another NPC's neck. Circle Sweep Kick. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain held onto the NPC with one leg and then twisted. Boundless Sea suddenly appeared in front of him. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain had used two NPCs as bridges to close the gap between himself and Boundless Sea. Pa! Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's head was whacked. Chi burst forth, flash burst. But it couldn't break apart Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's super armor. His health dropped, but Chaotic Cloudy Mountain had grabbed onto Boundless Sea. Super armor. He had super armor and Boundless Sea still had 22% health. Amidst this chaos, Boundless Sea wasn't able to completely avoid any injuries. 22%. No matter what, I have to take down that last 22%. The chi burst out from Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's head as Boundless Sea was flung into the air. He quickly looked around him. The NPCs were attacking him non-stop, but with reinforced iron bones active, he only feared CC skills that could break super armor. There were none. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain jumped, his health dropping rapidly. There was NPC damage mixed in with that flash burst. But he didn't dodge any of the attacks. He reached out and grabbed the airborne Boundless Sea. Fatal air drop. Boundless Sea crashed to the ground. But just 2 attacks wasn't enough to take out 22%. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain dropped down as Boundless Sea was thrown ruthlessly to the ground. After touching the ground, Boundless Sea bounced back into the air from the powerful impact. At this moment, his character was no longer in a grabbed state, so Fang Rui quickly acted. He couldn't move while in the air. All he could do was have Boundless Sea attack his opponent. How much health does he have left? Because Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was still taking damage from the NPC attacks, Fang Rui wasn't certain. Spiral Chi kill. As Boundless Sea bounced into the air, he frantically sent out an attack. A whirlwind of chi twisted towards the falling Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain didn't dodge. He couldn't dodge because he was also in the air. He reached out with his hands and grabbed Boundless Sea. Overhead toss. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain twisted his arms and threw Boundless Sea back to the ground. He fell and Boundless Sea fell. But when he stood up, Boundless Sea was flat on the ground. It wasn't over yet. Boundless Sea still had 2% of his health left. After his first grab onto Boundless Sea, Chaotic Cloudy Mountain remained close. Overhead toss into ground toss. Boundless Sea was lifted into the air and then thrown to the ground. Boundless Sea's health dropped to 0. Fang Rui was still staring at Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's health bar. The moment Boundless Sea's health fell to 0, victory was decided and Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's health was locked into place. Fang Rui could finally see it clearly. 84%. Keep going. Fang Rui was still tapping his keyboard and moving his mouse, but he discovered that Boundless Sea could no longer be controlled. His screen was strange, it had turned gray. Fang Rui stared blankly. 84%. So it ends here. Chapter 1665, for victory. Chapter 1665, for victory. Translator, Namyami. Editor, Namyami. 1. Lost. The two players on stage were somewhat dazed. Lu Boyuan had been extremely smug when he came up to battle, but the battle had unfolded vastly different from his expectations. He never thought that he would experience this kind of battle before. He won. He had finally cleaned out Boundless Sea's 22% health, but his instincts still half-expected Boundless Sea to flip up in the next instant and scurry into the mass of NPCs, landing a skill upon Chaotic Cloudy Mountain in the next second out of nowhere. He was still completely on alert. It wasn't until glory flashed on his screen, until his camera view was changing, displaying his Chaotic Cloudy Mountain going through the various victory poses. This was a moment that would normally inspire pride in any player, but right now, Lu Boyuan wasn't feeling any of that. Even he couldn't describe his current mood. He only stared at the screen, watching his chaotic, cloudy mountain finish the victory poses. The screen then exited the battle and the wait for the next player began. He won. Next player. Only now did Lu Boyuan suddenly have this kind of feeling. Only now did he suddenly feel like this victory was real. Next player. Lu Boyuan knew that he should already be paying attention to the transition to the next match, but his brain couldn't stop. His mind was still flashing with the scenes from the match that had just ended. Fang Rui's Boundless Sea seemed to be rolling once again, of course. Boundless Sea could no longer perform any roles. Fang Rui stared at that grayed-out world displayed after his character died for several seconds before finally standing up. He walked out of the competitor booth. The stadium seemed very quiet. He looked at the large display screen. Lu Boyuan won, Fang Rui lost. In the end, he'd still lost. Fang Rui lowered his head and quietly walked off stage. The stadium was quiet, and he was very quiet as well. This was unlike his usual self. Normally, he would be inflated with pride after victory, and after a loss he would adopt a wise person reflecting 1,000 times can still make a mistake attitude. What's more, his performance today couldn't be considered a loss at all. He had fallen to Lu Boyuan in the end, but before this, he had defeated Zhou Zekai, fiercely killed Samsara's unstoppable momentum. The significance of this one victory was already extraordinary, and then afterwards, he had used 53% of Boundless Sea's health to wipe away 84% of Lu Boyuan's. Even though there wasn't much worth analyzing in this process, everyone saw one thing clearly: perseverance toward victory. Fang Rui, this dirty player, chased victory without ever looking back. This match he played might not have been pretty, it might not have been nice to look at, but this perseverance and pursuit reached people's hearts. Unfortunately, his perseverance was stopped by Lu Boyuan's sudden explosiveness. Everyone felt the same as Lu Boyuan in his competitor booth. They still hadn't recovered. Their heads were still filled with the images of Boundless Sea rolling and weaving through the crowd of NPCs. It wasn't pretty, but it left a deep impression. In this silence, Fang Rui walked back to Happy's player area. Everyone swarmed up to him and he bravely forced out a smile. He in fact wanted to show off and act cool like he normally did, but after walking all the way back here, he suddenly felt like he didn't even have the spirit to be dirty anymore. Fang Rui sat back down in his seat, stretched his legs, stretched his arms. Chen Guo handed him a towel and he leaned against the back of his chair and placed it over his face. It was over. It really felt like his competitive state had left him. He had already done everything that he could, so why did he still feel so unsatisfied? What, work hard and you'll have no regrets? Words like that were just to fool people, weren't they? He still wanted to keep working hard. The team round hadn't even been played yet. The towel was cold, but Fang Rui felt like his covered eyes were burning hot. Ding, ding, ding. Suddenly he heard the alert of a text message. Fang Rui could tell that it was his phone. He truly was in no mood to check, but his teammates were right there, and ultimately he didn't want everyone to realize that he was acting strange. He wasn't going to be able to play the team competition, but being unable to play and not being sent to play, the difference between these things was still quite great. As Fang Rui wiped the towel over his face, his other hand picked up his phone. The match isn't over yet and neither are you, Lin Jingyan. This guy Fang Rui was stunned. He didn't immediately look for Lin Jingyan because he knew that even though this guy had already retired, he wouldn't let glory leave his line of sight so easily. No matter in what corner of the world he was now, he would be watching this match for sure. But that was all, because he had truly said goodbye to this all. Because for him, all of this was truly over. Fang Rui had no reason to talk about anything being over, because the match was still ongoing and his own professional career was still ongoing. Fang Rui turned his head and watched Tang Ru walk on stage. This was already Happy's final player, and Samsara, including the still-alive Lu Boyuan, still had 3 players left. "Looks like we have to 1v3, Fang Rui muttered. "Yes, that's the only way," Ye Xiu said gravely, his arms folded. 1v3. Logically, a pro player could never expect a 1v3. They couldn't set a 1v3 as a requirement for victory. But right now, Happy's players held this conviction. They didn't hide their expectation in front of Tang Ru because they knew that this woman would never be held back by pressure. Of Happy's remaining players, if they had to choose one person who they thought could complete a 1v3, it would be her. As she stepped onto the stage, Tang Ru breathed deeply. 1v3. The reason she had been criticized harshly this entire season was related to this. She was a bit embarrassed of how rash she had been initially, but no matter what, the greater the difficulty, the more she wanted to conquer it. This was the core of her character. 1v3 was a challenge that she always wanted to complete, but the team's victory always came first. And right now, the team's victory and whether or not she could complete a 1v3 were intrinsically tied together. This overlap lifted Tang Ru's battle spirit even more. 7th round of the group arena. Happy's 5th player Tang Ru against Samsara's 3rd player Lu Boyuan. The match began. Tang Ru's soft mist immediately charged forward. This had always been her style, and Lu Boyuan's chaotic cloudy mountain was only at 16% health right now, so there was even less reason for her to hesitate or stall. By now, Lu Boyuan had finally walked out of previous battle. Tang Ru, soft mist. He saw the player he was about to face. This wasn't a meeting that deserved surprise. After the 4 previous players, leaving Tang Ru to anchor was an arrangement within expectations. And Tang Ru's style was very clear. She came on stage not just to knock down the opponent before her, but the one after and the one after. Her goal would forever be to kill all. 1v3. This was the crazy promise she had once made, and because she had failed it, her name was dragged through the mud. And now, she was faced with a situation where victory required her to complete a 1v3. She must be very excited. Lu Boyuan could think of this point. Because he and the rest of the pro players could tell, this girl aimed for a 1v3 not to prove how strong she was, but because she simply enjoyed this kind of challenge. That was only the regular season, and there were only 3 players in the group arena, so a 1v3 was the most that could be done. If the regular season group arena had 5 players, no one would find it strange if this girl shouted a 1v5. Many people thought there was something wrong in her head, yet many others felt that this was an honest courage. 1v3, 1v5, these were viewed as difficult, nigh impossible. But every pro player had dreamed or imagined of completing such a thing. But they would only think about it. They wouldn't hold any serious hopes toward it. Yet Tang Ru treated this as a challenge and worked hard to try and fulfill it. However, right now, she was fighting for her team's victory, a higher and more responsible goal. It wasn't like before where she had been fighting for a careless promise. 1v3. In this moment, Tang Ru didn't think at all about that previous promise. All she thought of was victory. For victory, soft mist charged forward. Chapter 1666. Don't Cry, Lu Boyuan. Chapter 1666. Don't Cry, Lu Boyuan. Translator, Namyami. Editor, Namyami. 16%. Lu Boyuan looked at the health remaining on chaotic cloudy mountain. There wasn't much health left, but he couldn't retreat. He knew what target Tang Ru was charging toward, and he was determined to strike at her head-on. Chaotic cloudy mountain rushed forth. At the center of the canyon, the 2 characters met. Tang Ru's style was always to charge without hesitation, and her common starting move was the powerful attack Dragon Breaks the Ranks. Lu Boyuan had memorized all of this, and as soon as soft mist appeared in his view, he was already bracing himself. Chaotic cloudy mountain no longer traveled in a straight line, and instead began to advance in an unpredictable roundabout way. to prevent soft mist from breaking through with a single dragon breaks the ranks. It seemed like Tang Ru didn't care about that much. Soft Mist's movement was as straight as ever, but her camera view was tracking chaotic Cloudy Mountain's non-stop movement, keeping him in the center of her field of view. He had chosen this kind of roundabout movement for two reasons. One was to prevent Tang Ru from using her normal method of dragon breaks the ranks, and the other was that this was a common method of closing in on the opponent. Compared to gunners and other mages, battle mages and grapplers were both close-range attackers, but comparing a battle mage and a grappler, there was still a difference in their attack ranges. The attack range of a grappler was basically the length of a character's arms, within 2 units of distance. As for battle mages, their attack range included not only the length of their arms but the length of their weapon. With that, their attack range could reach a max of 5 or even 6 units. So to grapplers, battle mages were also long-range attackers. Breaking through that 6-unit range to get to 2 units, completing the close-in, was a difficult problem to solve. Grapplers' skills tended to focus on pure damage. Not including the skills of the other fighter classes, there was basically no way to restrict, control, or distract the opponent. Movement was the most realistic way. Today, Lu Boyuan had chosen to put the skill Cloud body on chaotic Cloudy Mountain's weapon. It strengthened his movement ability. The two characters moved closer and closer, gradually nearing a distance of 10 units. Tang Ru had held back on Dragon Breaks the Ranks. Right now, with just a few more steps, she could directly initiate attack. Lu Boyuan suddenly changed the rhythm of chaotic Cloudy Mountain's movement. Originally, he had been moving around 70% vertically and 30% horizontally. But with a sharp turn, his horizontal movement suddenly changed to 80%, and his vertical advance was only at 20%. Instantly, the speed at which the two characters were approaching slowed down. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain, using a large horizontal movement, was swiftly moving to flank Soft Mist. Ordinary gamers might not have been able to detect much, but in the eyes of the pros, this was an extremely old and clever way of using a rhythm change to create a time disparity. Once Tang Ru had gotten accustomed to the approach speed of the opponent, if the opponent suddenly changed speed and direction, her reaction would be slowed by a half a beat or a beat. When close-range classes fought, they needed to take the initiative. 1 beat or half a beat, that was enough to separate who was faster and who was slower. Lu Boyuan seized the initiative. The angle of attack chosen after changing the rhythm was also chosen very well. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain cut into Soft Mist's attack range, but Tang Ru's field of view couldn't keep up. She hastily spun, but she was too slow. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was right next to her, but she couldn't catch him in her sights. She was only off by that half beat. Take the lead first. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was already reaching a hand towards Soft Mist, but a streak of red light suddenly swept across his waist. Tyrant's destruction. Soft Mist's sight hadn't arrived, but her attack had. Just when Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was about to grab Soft Mist, he was sent flying by this Tyrant's destruction. Slow by half a beat. Yes, she was slow, but this half-beat slow wasn't because Tang Ru's reaction was slow. It wasn't because she had fallen into the trap laid by Lu Boyuan's sudden change in rhythm. She was slow by half a beat because she hadn't used her vision to chase Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's movement. She had instead opted to directly control Soft Mist to use an attack. The control and launch of a tyrant's destruction would always be a bit slower than turning one's camera. This was where the delay had come from. But in the end, Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was sent flying. Falling flower palm. Soft Mist slid and forced a palm out toward the flying Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. With a boom, the palm hit, sending Chaotic Cloudy Mountain flying out even faster toward the canyon wall behind him. After the falling flower palm hit, the fire chaser it generated shot toward him and exploded against him, swallowing him in a burst of red fire. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain took even more damage. Soft Mist's arms were already wreathed in the strength buff granted by the Fire Chaser, and Soft Mist charged forward. Dragon breaks the ranks. Dancing Fire Flowing Flame was instantly in front of Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. Soft Mist didn't reduce her momentum. Forward, continue forward. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's back finally slammed against the canyon wall, sending a boom echoing through the canyon. It was clear how forceful the blow had been. But his path didn't stop there. His body actually continued to sink into the mountain wall, leaving a hole into the stone. Dancing Fire Flowing Flame had already completely penetrated Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's body. Right now, she was extremely close to the other character, at a distance of only 1 unit. For a grappler, this was the optimal attack distance. But Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's arms were stuck on both sides of his body. He had no way of lifting them. No matter how fast Lu Boyuan's hand speed was, no matter how high his technique, no matter how strong his willpower, no matter how great his determination, he couldn't. His health reached 0. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain died. Tyrant's Destruction, Falling Flower Palm, Fire Chaser, Dragon breaks the ranks. 4 attacks surpassed the 16% damage needed to end the life of Lu Boyuan's Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. Victory was decided. The winner, Happy's Tang Ru. The stadium hadn't even reacted yet. In the broadcast, Pan Lin and Li Yibo's analysis of Lu Boyuan's clever rhythm change came to an abrupt stop. What more was there to analyze? Lu Boyuan's Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was already dead. Victory was already announced. No one had really expected Lu Boyuan to win with Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's remaining 16% health, but this loss was a bit too quick and neat, wasn't it? The stadium was quiet for a while, until finally, the cheers and applause of Happy's fans rose up from a corner of the stadium. Samsara's fans seemed to be at a loss. They didn't know how they should respond to the cheers of the opposing fans. Tang Ru's clean victory had left them speechless. Happy's cheers resounded in Samsara's stadium for quite a while before finally being suppressed by the random noisemakers of Samsara's fans. They could only take advantage of their numbers, because right now they didn't have any unified slogan to shout. They couldn't stand up together and yell, "Don't cry Lu Boyuan," right? Chapter 1667. Who's better? Chapter 1667. Who's better? Translator. Namyami Editor. Namyami Lu Boyuan came down from the stage. His performance today couldn't be considered terrible, but it wasn't great either. All he did was beat Fang Rui, who only had 53% of his health left. His match against Tang Ru was no different than getting instant killed. Samsara still had the lead, though. The Samsara fans weren't angry at him. There was still applause, encouragement for his efforts. This couldn't cover up the fact that Lu Boyuan's condition wasn't at its peak. He had played poorly in the previous game. In today's game, he had been brimming with resolve, but his performance was much worse than he had expected. What's going on? Lu Boyuan felt like he had lost direction. He couldn't seem to get into the right mentality. He walked back to his seat quietly. Facing the comforting from his teammates, he could only squeeze out a smile. The match continued. Du Ming was all ready to go. Before he went onto the stage, he couldn't help but glance at the players on Happy's side. Of course, he didn't see the person he was looking for, because she was on stage. Du Ming was getting excited. He had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time, and today it had finally come. Du Ming hadn't forgotten his previous exchange with Tang Ru. It had been a very short one, though, so there wasn't much to recall. In that exchange, he had been distracted, thinking about other things. On the other hand, Tang Ru had been completely focused on the match, demolishing him. Du Ming felt extremely ashamed. He had let down the team and let down such a rare opportunity. That was why he had been hoping for a second chance. He had to have another try. He had to focus on the match and complete a brilliant conversation by winning. Du Ming walked onto the stage and into the player booth. The 8th round of the group arena began. Samsara's Du Ming versus Happy's Tang Ru. The map loaded. The characters loaded. Charge, soft mist, moon luring frost. The two players didn't hesitate and immediately rushed forward. Soon, the two would meet at the center of the canyon. Neither of them paused to take a rest. The two were both charging towards each other. Sword raised, spear out, clash. The sound of their weapons colliding echoed through the canyon. The two started their attack at practically the same time. Then both of them adjusted their attacks. In the end, when their weapons collided, it became one of them attacking while the other parrying. The second, third, and fourth attacks followed. Both players were playing fast. It was an intense confrontation as soon as the fighting began. He's playing well. On Samsara's side, everyone was paying attention to Du Ming's performance. They were very pleased with his playing. His dreams come true. How could he not be playing well? Fang Minghua laughed. Everyone nodded their heads. Du Ming was playing exceptionally well this finals. It was clearly related to their opponents being Team Happy. This time, Du Ming wasn't as distracted as last time. He had turned these distractions into motivation. As a result, he was always able to perform at his best. That was why Samsara was at ease sending him out onto the stage. And now, he was fighting Tang Ru on stage once again. He didn't think about their encounter the last time or the time before that or the first time. In his eyes, there was only the match in front of him. In his heart, there was only victory. He became extremely focused. It was perhaps the most focused he'd ever been in his entire professional career. Openings that he usually wouldn't be able to see were clear as day to Du Ming right now. He saw the tiniest of openings and took it. Downwind sword slash. The sharp sword wind came out of the blue. A split suddenly appeared in the tight battle. Tang Ru could only have soft mist hastily raise her spear to parry with a normal attack, but it couldn't resist the powerful force from downwind sword slash. Her spear, dancing fire flowing flame, was knocked aside. Soft mist was already retreating, but she couldn't escape from the sword slash. Blood flew into the air, splashing onto the sword light. Tang Ru did the best she could to defend against the attack and reduce the damage she took, but the previous equilibrium had been broken. Sword light flashed, triple slash. Moon luring frost suddenly appeared by soft mist's side. This was only the second slash from triple slash. Amazing. The expert blade master Huang Shiyashan couldn't help but give a shout of praise. The attack, distance, angle, and timing, all of it had been perfect. It was impossible to dodge this attack. It didn't matter how fast Tang Ru reacted, it couldn't be done. Another injury was added. Du Ming had the initiative. Sword light flashed, mercilessly flying towards soft mist. The Samsara fans were excited. The previous gloom had been swept away. Du Ming looked as unstoppable as Zhou Zekai. They began waving their arms and shouting, cheering for Du Ming. "One wave kill," they shouted. It would be the greatest response to Lu Boyuan getting dismantled last round, but one wave, by the second word of the second shout, they had to stop. Soft mist pointed her spear towards the sky. With a furious dragon strikes the heart, she stopped moon luring frost's advance. Even the pro players were dumbstruck. They discovered that they could no longer predict who would win this match. No one knew what the two on stage could do. They were both playing well beyond themselves. Du Ming was playing incredibly well, but Tang Ru was playing even better. She had been suppressed by Du Ming's offense, yet just when everyone was wondering how she would be able to get out, she used one attack to turn things around and start her counterattack. This wasn't normal. This wasn't something that could be explained through logic. The stadium screens showed a replay of the furious dragon strikes the heart, but even the pro players furrowed their brows in thought. How was she able to pull off the attack? How was she able to achieve the outcome she got? The match wouldn't stop because they were thinking. Now, it was Tang Ru's turn to be on the offensive and Du Ming's turn to defend. Du Ming had the upper hand before, but in an instant, Tang Ru took it from him. Du Ming didn't panic. He calmly observed the situation. His offensive had been cut off. No worries, just get it back. Du Ming's thoughts were simple but determined. At this moment, he wasn't thinking of anything else. Even though he was playing well because of Tang Ru, he wasn't distracted by her. All of his attention was on how to win this battle. Facing the fiery assault from soft mists dancing fire flowing flame, moon luring frost fought back with his lingering ice, a clash between fire and ice. He was only defending, but he would always strike at the most critical time, like a fireman staving off a fire. He was waiting for an opening. He didn't know when the opening would come, but he knew that it would come eventually. Formless phantom blade. His sword, lingering ice, suddenly split apart. Du Ming's patience was finally about to be rewarded. He seized an opening and used the level 70 formless phantom blade. Sword light weaved into a net, enshrouding soft mist. Her offense was suddenly put to an abrupt stop, but soft mist didn't retreat. If her offense had been broken, then just start another one. 100 Dragon Meteor Strike. Soft mist also used a high-level skill. Her spear blurred into countless afterimages. Tang Ru focused the attacks towards a single direction to clash with moon luring frost's formless phantom blade. The sounds of collisions rang endlessly. Under the inconceivable microing by the two players, neither side was able to gain the upper hand. But the experts had noticed that this balance wouldn't last forever, because there would be a final hit. Formless Phantom Blade had a final strike. It was the skill's most powerful strike, dealing high damage and having high priority, knocking the target flying back. On the other hand, 100 Dragon Meteor Strike didn't have such a tyrannical effect. Because of this final strike, Formless Phantom Blade's attack priority would reach a height that 100 Dragon Meteor Strike couldn't contest with. Moreover, 100 Dragon Meteor Strike would end before Formless Phantom Blade dealt its final blow. Who won this clash depended on how the two sides managed this final strike, and this moment was about to arrive. Chapter 1668, All Setup. Chapter 1668, All Setup. Translator, Namyami. Editor, Namyami. Red and blue light clashed again and again. Just watching the flashing colors gave the viewers goosebumps. For a moment, the normal gamers didn't know where to look. They simply watched in awe with their jaws wide open. It's here. The experts knew where the key lay. Just when the collision between skills was about to end, all of them grew nervous and put their full attention toward the battle. 5, 4, 3, 2, they had started counting down. The last collision between weapons was about to occur. Next would be the final strike. It had been a stalemate the entire time, but this next strike would end it. She missed her parry, but no one had thought that before the decisive strike, Tang Ru would slip up. Her 100 Dragon Meteor Strike had failed to parry the Formless Phantom Blade's sword slash. Blue light invaded her territory and blood blossomed into the air. Hit. The second-to-last Formless Phantom Blade hit soft mist. 100 Dragon Meteor Strike was interrupted. The red light glowing from dancing fire flowing flames dimmed. The final slash, the strongest hit. The sword light gave off its most resplendent light, flying towards soft mist's head. No blood, no knockback. The sword light was still as brilliant as ever. The sword light was still flying. Shock filled the faces of the ones who noticed what had happened. The final slash, the strongest hit, had missed. Yes, the sword light missed. Soft mist had retreated during this short window. She had actually ran away. She had always been fierce and domineering, but suddenly it was as if someone else were playing. This sort of play had Fang Rui's signature written all over it. But in the next instant, in the next moment, the next second, soft mist straightened back up and charged forward. Du Ming's moon-luring frost was stuck in the end lag from Formless Phantom Blade. There was no way for him to resist. How did things turn out like this? The experts were no longer thinking about the ongoing battle. They couldn't understand what had just happened. If you could escape one of Formless Phantom Blade's strikes by taking the previous one, then the skill would be too flawed. However, Tang Ru's soft mist had done it, and by taking the second to last hit, she dodged the final one. Then, the ending lag from the formless phantom blade left the opponent with a huge opening. The stadium screen immediately began showing a replay, starting from when the two skills clashed. Once, twice, the pro players could start to see the reason. Watch Soft Mist's movements. Her parries weren't just to defend, but to guide. Pay attention to the last one. The parry that she missed left an opening exactly where Tang Ru wanted him to attack. Yes, taking the hit helped her get to the right position for the next one. She had been setting it up bit by bit, and Du Ming didn't notice it at all. Not just Du Ming did any of us catch it. Silence. From rookies to gods, the ones who caught on the fastest were only able to catch it on the replay. Finally, she used the sort of micro-control that Fang Rui specializes in to dodge the final strike. After that, counterattack. Yes, counterattack. While the pro players were analyzing this play, Tang Ru had already started swinging her spear. Fang Rui's dirty style had only appeared for an instant. Then, it was back to her usual fierceness. Due to being in a stunned state from the skill, Moon Luring Frost was in an even harder-to-break combo. Du Ming didn't understand why his formless Phantom Blade's final strike didn't land. He didn't have the time or resources to carefully analyze a replay like the pro players had done. He needed to worry about the present. How could he get Moon Luring Frost out of Soft Mist's combo or find an opportunity to counterattack? But Tang Ru wouldn't give him any opportunities. She quickly reached the end of her combo. The combo had been so short that it felt rather wasteful. Rising Dragon soars the sky. Battle magic transformed into a dragon and flew into the air. Moon Luring Frost was still under Soft Mist's control and couldn't dodge this attack. However, Du Ming let out a sigh of relief. Rising Dragon soars the sky was similar to Formless Phantom Blade. It had a long ending animation, so it couldn't be comboed into anything. As for false combos, that depended on the situation. Moon Luring Frost was sent flying as one would expect. Du Ming didn't see her setting up any follow-ups. Boom! The Rising Dragon soars the sky ended, and the battle magic exploded. The glimmering light enshrouded Moon Luring Frost. Soft Mist was stuck in the skill's ending animation, but after Du Ming's Moon Luring Frost was hit by the attack, he wouldn't be able to move immediately. The explosive battle magic still rippled with power. Tang Ru's Soft Mist finished retracting her spear and immediately attacked again. Rei's spear charge, dragon breaks the ranks. That's it? Du Ming was somewhat surprised. Moon Luring Frost had already recovered. Because of the distance, dodging this dragon breaks the ranks wouldn't be difficult. Tang Ru's impulsive usage of the skill would give him an opportunity to counterattack. Although Dragon Breaks the Ranks didn't have a notable ending lag if she missed, it was still quite a big opening. There was no time to think. Du Ming had Moon Luring Frost dodge the attack. Although it wouldn't be difficult, that was only from a pro player's perspective. For a normal player, Tang Ru's sudden Dragon Breaks the Ranks wouldn't be so easy to react to. Opportunity only came once. Move to the side, counterattack. Du Ming's intentions were clear. After figuring out the timing, he made his move. Move to the side, unsheath sword, and swing all in one breath. He turned and unsheathed his sword, but he unexpectedly wasn't able to move to the side. He looked to the side. In front of his eyes was a giant wall, a wall that was very, very close to him. As a result, he wasn't able to fully swing his sword. The sword light was blocked by the wall. Du Ming stared blankly. He had missed the timing. Soft Mist had arrived. Dragon Breaks the Ranks. Her spear, dancing fire flowing flame, struck Moon Luring Frost. Du Ming felt himself getting pushed on both sides. His viewpoint began getting smaller and smaller. A scene suddenly floated into Du Ming's mind. In the previous round, Lu Boyuan's chaotic cloudy mountains had been pinned to the wall by the Dragon Breaks the Ranks and was killed. A hole the size of a person had remained in the wall. In the group arena, damage to the map would remain. Rising Dragon soars the sky had sent him into this hole. The exploding battle magic interfered with his sight and pushed him even deeper. At this moment, Dragon breaks the ranks. Moon-luring Frost was sent even deeper. He was trapped inside the hole. Left, right, retreat, jump, he couldn't. There was only one direction, forward, and forward was soft mist. Chapter 1669, The Booze of the Home Stadium. Chapter 1669, The Booze of the Home Stadium. Translator, Namyami. Editor, Namyami. After the rising dragon soars the sky sent moon luring Frost flying. The audience could already see where he would be blasted. Du Ming, who was in the middle of the battle, was perhaps the last person to realize the situation. However, even though ordinary gamers could see it, they didn't react so quickly. The pros were different. As soon as they saw the direction in which moon-luring Frost was flying, they were caught off guard for only a moment before quickly realizing that this was intentional. What came next confirmed their hypotheses. A pit that initially didn't seem that deep. Alone, that wasn't enough to limit a character's movements. If Du Ming had detected it from the very beginning, if he had chosen to move in a more diagonal direction, he would have had enough time to get out of the pit and dodge the dragon breaks the ranks. But unfortunately, he hadn't paid attention to this detail. He took the opportunity to counterattack by moving horizontally, but then he was impeded by that shallow indentation in the mountain wall. With that one obstacle, the opportunity was lost. It was too late to make any other response. The dragon breaks the ranks into rising dragon soars the sky pushed moon luring Frost even further into the wall. Now, it was no longer an obstacle of one moment. Now, Du Ming's moon luring Frost was stuck in the pit for good. Move, there was only one direction. Attack, there was also only one direction. And this one direction wasn't even available to every attack. For example, downwind sword slash. Even though it was a straight-line forward attack, moon-luring Frost was stuck firmly into the pit and didn't have the space to perform the starting motions for this skill. Naturally, the skill couldn't be used. Du Ming lost. In this moment, everyone was confident in making such a judgment. No freedom to move, no freedom to use skills, he couldn't even jump. Soft mist blocked the entrance, and dancing fire flowing flame was already stabbing inward. Skills. Were they even needed? Even if Tang Ru controlled soft mist to only use ordinary attacks, Du Ming had no way of controlling moon luring Frost to dodge. In a situation where he couldn't move, parrying the attacks became imagination. Soft mist's attacks landed with 100% accuracy, which only made Du Ming even more at a loss as to what to do. In this situation where attacks were landing upon him non-stop, even if he had hundreds or thousands of skills that could instantly allow him to move outside of the hole, he wouldn't be able to use them. Just like that, he fell. Du Ming lost even more helplessly than Mo Fan had in the fourth battle, where he'd been unable to land a single hit on Zhou Zekai's Cloud Piercer. Mo Fan, at least, had had space to move. He could at least demonstrate attempts, even if they hadn't succeeded in the end. But Du Ming, even his right to attempt was stolen away. He was stuck in this hole, stabbed by soft mist again and again, all the way until he died. It was pathetic to the extreme. Winner, Happy's Tang Ru. The system dutifully announced the result. The Happy fans were thrilled, jumping and shouting in the stadium. The Samsara fans were dumbstruck. When Zhou Zekai had completed his 1v3, they thought that victory was already theirs, that Happy was done for. But now Happy had actually catching back up to them. Tang Ru's soft mist still had 73% health left to face Samsara's final player. Under these conditions, the final outcome of this group arena couldn't be predicted. How did this happen? The Samsara fans were still stuck in a daze. When Zhou Zekai, with a Cloud Piercer that was almost at half health, accomplished a 1v3 to reach Happy's second-to-last character and player, Everyone felt that this was a gap that couldn't be closed. And then, had it ever felt like Happy was catching up? There hadn't been that feeling, it seemed like. Everyone was waiting for the result to be finalized. But then, the situation had suddenly become what it was right now. Suddenly, Samsara's insurmountable lead had shrunk to only this much, 100% against 73%. The audience couldn't restrain themselves. This was the deciding match of the finals, the time in which the team needed the most support and encouragement, and yet at this moment, Team Samsara heard the sound of booing. Glory's demonic home stadium, the place where Team Samsara was invincible. Then, last match, Happy had destroyed Samsara's home game win streak. And this match, Happy caused Team Samsara to hear the sound of booing in their own home stadium. Not long before this, the stadium had still been filled with the excitement of winning the championship. The mood had swung from one extreme to the other. It was clear how greatly the fans' spirits had fallen. On the sidelines, Lu Boyuan was sitting on pins and needles. When Du Ming walked out of the competitor booth and felt this atmosphere, he was also somewhat hesitant and frightened. The performance of their first player Sun Xiang had been fine. Zhou Zekai had played flawlessly, and he was the one who had ignited the excitement of winning the championship. But after him, Lu Boyuan, Du Ming, Samsara's decline from prosperity had occurred on their heads. Zhou Zekai had been eliminated by Fang Rui, but in that battle Cloud Piercer had lost less health than Boundless Sea. But then it was Lu Boyuan, and then Du Ming. Now the two of them had both lost, yet the two of them combined had been unable to kill off a single whole life on Happy's side. The audience was in no mood to reflect upon the process. Just this outcome was intolerable. In such an important match, the rare scene of the home fans booing the home team actually appeared. Samsara's fans were upset because they had held too high hopes for their team. But the pro players, their stance was more neutral, but in comparison, they felt that it was more interesting for the Black Horse Happy to overthrow the two-time champion Samsara. Happy had gone from being left far behind in the dust to suddenly catching up like this. Even the more logical watchers among them felt that this was extremely exciting, and they wanted to see if the situation would become even more interesting. Would this be a 1v3? At last, it was time for those standing on Happy's side to hold this kind of hope. Zhou Zekai had completed a 1v3 against Happy, and now it was Tang Ru's turn to return that 1v3 to Samsara, a 1v3 that would decide the final outcome of the group arena. Was there anything more wonderful than this? 1v3. Happy's fans were already shouting in the stadium. This angered the Samsara fans even more, and their boos became louder. They hoped that the team would quickly wake up. Originally, it was their side's 1v3 that had created such a beautiful lead, and now their opponents were yelling about a 1v3. How humiliating was that? Amidst the away fans, shouts of a 1v3 and the home fans' dissatisfied boos, Samsara's vice-captain Jiang Batao stood up. Under this pressure from both sides, he walked on stage. The boos suddenly quieted down, proving how popular Jiang Batao was in the hearts of Samsara fans. He'd been voted into the top 10, and even the top 5 All-Stars for the past 2 years, which absolutely required a large number of supporters. Samsara's fans were extremely upset with the situation, but the two players who'd put them in this situation had already lost and left the stage. Right now, it was their vice-captain stepping forward. So many Samsara's fans' hopes were once again lifted, and the booing quieted down. Even so, the amount of pressure that Jiang Batao felt wouldn't decrease at all. He knew very clearly that even though the booing sounds were quieter, that was because their final hopes were on his shoulders now. If he also could not give a satisfactory result, then the boos that he would suffer when he came off stage would surge even more than they had just earlier. This battle he couldn't mess up. It wasn't just the mood of the fans, but the morale of their team as well. If they experienced this kind of blow, then they would be at a great disadvantage entering the team round. He had to figure out a way to stabilize the overall situation. Jiang Batao came on stage. His movements were neither too fast nor too slow. He walked over to report to the judge, and then entered his competitor booth. It was all carried out in an unhurried, orderly fashion. He was adjusting his own mood, letting himself be as calm as possible, not letting himself worry. Character loaded, map loaded. The 9th battle of the group arena, the deciding battle, began. Happy's Tang Ru character Soft Mist, 73% health. Samsara's Jiang Batao character Empty Waves, 100% health. Soft Mist charged forth. It was just like last battle, like last battle, without thought, extremely decisive. This was Tang Ru's style. She had always been like this. But now, no one would think of Tang Ru as so simple ever again. In the battle that had just ended, despite being in an extraordinarily brave state, Du Ming had ended up losing in such a pathetic way, not by control, nor by technique, but by calculation. And these calculations had been done without any change to her normal behavior, so much so that before the situation happened, no one had realized. Those who would play against Tang Ru now knew to be more prepared. The pro players in the audience gave themselves a word of warning for potential future meetings with this best rookie. Chapter 1670, A Calm and Unhurried Opening. Chapter 1670, A Calm and Unhurried Opening. Translator, Namyami. Editor, Namyami. Others were thinking of the future, but Jiang Batao had to face the present. The match began. Tang Ru's Soft Mist rushed out. As for Jiang Batao, his playing was the same as his walk to the stage, neither slow nor fast. His Spellblade, Empty Waves, marched ahead comfortably. The center of the map still had numerous holes left behind by chaotic cloudy mountain and moon-luring frost. At the start, everyone had been discussing whether Jiang Batao would be thrown into the holes as well. But when they saw Jiang Batao's unhurried pace, the discussion ended. With the difference in speed between Jiang Batao's Empty Waves and Tang Ru's Soft Mist, the two sides wouldn't be meeting in the center. But then again, Tang Ru could just wait at the center of the map for Jiang Batao to arrive. No. Not long after these guesses were made, Soft Mist continued right past the center of the map. As a result, the two met on the half of the map closer to Samsara's spawn point. Soft Mist didn't stop and continued forward. This was how Tang Ru always played, but after seeing her performance today, it was hard not to give her playstyle another thought. As for Jiang Batao, would Jiang Batao think differently and play more carefully? No one knew. All they saw was his Empty Waves lift his sword. Earth Wave Slash. Spellblades had mid-ranged attacks, so it was common to see them attack first against close-ranged enemies. Earth Wave Slash was the Spellblade's lowest-level Spellblade skill. Even though its damage wasn't high, it was quick and possessed high priority. Jiang Batao's opening move was nothing out of the ordinary. It was an opening that Spellblades used 80% of the time. Calm and unhurried, the battle had begun. Jiang Batao's performance could be described with these three words. Was this the playstyle he was going to use in today's match? Playstyle. When this word fell onto Jiang Batao, most people would furrow their brows in uncertainty. He was an all-star player, the vice-captain of a championship team. He had a stellar reputation in the pro circle and was very popular amongst the player base. However, no one could say what exactly his playstyle was. Even Samsara themselves weren't sure. When they first discovered Jiang Batao's talent in tactics and strategies, they had thought of elevating him to the level of a master tactician, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to shine bright enough and the matter was left inconclusive. Jiang Batao didn't have a distinct playstyle, but after a long time, people started to gradually realize that this was perhaps his true style. His ability to adapt was extraordinary. He could use any playstyle he wanted to battle. He was always the team's most sturdy pillar. This was why he was able to synergize perfectly with Zhou Zekai and Samsara. The glue, jack of all trades, timely rain, tinker, Jiang Batao had started in Season 6. It hadn't even been 5 years and he had countless nicknames. From this, it could be seen how difficult it was to pinpoint his playstyle. But through these numerous nicknames, it was also able to show his strengths. There was one common aspect with all these nicknames. All of them described Jiang Batao through a team perspective. As for his individual prowess, even today, it seemed to be a difficult question. Everyone only knew that he was skilled, that he wasn't easy to deal with. Anyone who played against him had to be on guard. He could play aggressive. He could play dirty. He could play a mental battle. He could do what seemed to be illogical choices, but no matter what, you couldn't relax even a single moment. A single moment of carelessness could result in you losing. Jiang Batao made this ordinary opening move, making it hard to predict what he would do next because there were simply too many possibilities. This was precisely his aim. He wanted to create a situation filled with possibilities, so he could calmly observe Tang Ru and find a way to win. Even though Samsara needed him to re-establish their morale, he couldn't act rashly. Because in his view, different opponents needed to be played against differently, and Tang Ru definitely wasn't someone he could fight against with brute force. Jiang Batao was waiting for Tang Ru to act. That earth wave slash seemed to be bait for Tang Ru to attack. His sword had already come out. Next was to wait to see how Tang Ru would react. Even though he had seen a few peculiarities from Tang Ru's previous fight, he was pretty certain that Tang Ru would meet force with force. Jiang Ba guessed correctly. Soft Mist moved to the side a bit without wasting any movements, just barely dodging the earth wave slash. Then she raised her spear, dancing fire flowing flames, and accelerated. Dragon breaks the ranks. Tang Ru went with her usual opening move, charging forward the instant she dodged the earth wave slash. Her timing was good, but all of it was within Jiang Batao's calculations. He had been ready for all of the possible reactions to his earth wave slash bait. Dragon breaks the ranks had been the most likely possibility, and Jiang Batao was on guard against it. Dodge. Empty waves rolled to the side twice, because just one roll wouldn't be enough. With Tang Ru's reaction speed, she would have enough time to change the direction of her dragon breaks the ranks to cover a target that only rolled once. Jiang Batao's deduction was correct once again. As expected, as soon as Tang Ru saw him roll, she immediately adjusted. Soft Mist leaned to the side, altering the direction of the dragon breaks the ranks. Empty Waves noticed it and did the second roll. Dragon breaks the ranks had missed, and the instant Empty Waves got up from the roll, he swung his shortsword Divine Chains. Wave Wheel Slasher, a grab attack that broke through super armor. Even against the powerful dragon breaks the ranks, Wave Wheel Slasher out-prioritized it. The attack, the timing, the angle, all of it had been incomparably cunning. Would it hit though? Jiang Batao wondered. From his calculations, there was around a 50% chance he would fail. It depended on Tang Ru's condition this fight. Tang Ru's condition today was outstanding, but she had already gone through 2 fights. Perhaps she couldn't keep up her focus, or perhaps she was too excited, or perhaps she was thinking too much about making a comeback. Countless factors could decide whether she reacted fast enough. Would it hit? The sword light flew through the air. It missed. Soft Mist had canceled the dragon breaks the ranks at the last moment, giving her time to leap to the side, dodging the wave wheel slasher. She dodged it. Jiang Batao was a bit regretful, but with how well Tang Ru was playing today, this outcome had been more likely. Jiang Batao wouldn't linger on this for too long because he had already thought that Tang Ru would likely counterattack the moment she dodged. What would she counterattack with? Dancing fire flowing flames whistled through the air. 2 streaks of red flickered. Oh, it's double stab. Empty Waves calmly raised his sword guard. Thank you for listening to the story on KevinAudio.com, Chapter 1671. Counterattack Timing Chapter 1671, Counterattack Timing Translator, Namyami Editor, Namyami Ding Ding. Empty waves knocked aside the two spear shadows. Double stab as a counterattack. Jiang Batao wasn't surprised in the slightest. He had been ready for this sort of attack. While using guard, Jiang Batao had empty waves step back. Sure enough, after the double stab, soft mist stabbed again. With Tang Ru's skill, stabbing 4 times during her jump wouldn't be a problem for her. Since she had started with double stab, there would definitely be another 2 following. After empty waves stepped back, Jiang Batao had more room to maneuver. Seeing that the stab was just a normal attack, he had empty waves swing his sword and parry the strike. Soft mist landed on the ground. She didn't follow with a dragon tooth after the normal attack. Tang Ru had seen empty waves block her attacks in succession, letting her know that anything further would likely be blocked as well. Falling Flower Palm. As soon as she landed on the ground, she launched a new attack. Falling Flower Palm could be charged and could also be used while sliding on the ground. The distance between empty waves and soft mist was perfect for a slide. Empty waves retreated again, taking another step back. Tang Ru's follow-up had been within his calculations as well. Boom! The magic shockwave from Falling Flower Palm hit nothing but air. Empty waves was very close to soft mist, but he was still just a bit too far. Empty waves swung his sword. The distance was too close. Although wave slashes were instant cast spells, its startup was slower than close-ranged skills. As a result, Jiang Batao chose to use a normal attack instead. Normal attacks dealt little damage and had weak priority, but if they landed, they would still hinder the opponent's movements. Tang Ru couldn't completely ignore the attack. Soft mist swayed to the right, dodging the slash. At the same time, she thrust her spear. Tyrant's Destruction. Jiang Batao saw soft mist sway to the right and immediately thought of this skill. After moving to the right, whether it was her posture or her angle of attack, both were perfect for a Tyrant's Destruction. Sure enough, dancing fire flowing flames tore through the air, Tyrant's Destruction. Empty waves jumped back to dodge the Tyrant's Destruction. This time the distance between them was enough for a wave slash. Divine Chain slashed out. Ice Wave Slash. Ice crystals formed wherever the blade passed through, sweeping across the ground. Empty waves had attacked, but soft mist was in a good position after the Tyrant's Destruction, giving her enough time to react. Dodge. Attack. Empty waves' offense was quickly put to a stop, and in the blink of an eye, Tang Ru held the initiative again. The Samsara fans let out sighs of regret. The way things were going worried them. However, through glances with each other, the pro players had a different opinion. It was true that Tang Ru held the initiative, but that was from an attack and defense perspective. In terms of the flow of the match, then that might not be the case. Tang Ru was on the offensive, but it mainly because Jiang Batao was letting her. It had only been a few exchanges since Tang Ru's opening with Dragon breaks the ranks. If Jiang Batao had wanted to seize the initiative, there were at least 2 opportunities for him to do so. However, Jiang Batao had only counterattacked after dodging Dragon breaks the ranks and Tyrant's Destruction. The other 2 times he could have counterattacked, he hadn't. Was it because Jiang Batao hadn't noticed these 2 other opportunities? It didn't seem like it because neither of those 2 opportunities had been hard to see. Most of the normal players had noticed them. In that case, why did Jiang Batao choose to give up on these opportunities? The pro players didn't understand at first, but after seeing Jiang Batao's empty waves try to counterattack after dodging the Tyrant's Destruction, they had a rough idea of Jiang Batao's strategy. He wanted to make things simple. He didn't want anything too complicated. Just take those 2 opportunities that he gave up on. If he had succeeded, he would have been the one on the offensive, but if he had failed. For those 2 opportunities, Tang Ru had too many options available to her. There was no way for him to take them all into consideration. As for the two opportunities that he did take, he had completely read what Tang Ru would do and easily dealt with whatever she responded with. This was Jiang Badao's general strategy for this match. Make things simple so his opponent only had a few choices and then take control. Only a few exchanges had happened. Jiang Badao had spent most of his efforts on thinking. The ice wave slash had missed, and when Tang Ru's soft mist started her offense again, Jiang Badao's empty waves retreated. Dragon Tooth or Circle Swing, or maybe even Draconic Crusher. Jiang Badao thought of Tang Ru's possible choices. Dragon Tooth. The more that he saw Tang Ru stay within his predictions, the calmer Jiang Badao became. He wasn't at all worried like the fans outside were. Dragon Tooth missed. Okay, next is Furious Dragon Strikes the Heart. Sure enough, Furious Dragon strikes the heart. Miss again. Dragon Rises from the Sea or Cloud Whirling Windstorm. Oh, Dragon Rises from the Sea. Dodge. Soft mist attacked several times, and each time empty waves retreated. The fight looked completely one-sided. The moment a potential counterattack from empty waves appeared, soft mist instantly crushed any chances of it happening. But even the ordinary viewers had started to notice that even though it looked like Jiang Badao was losing, the one who should be worried probably wasn't Jiang Badao. Tang Ru had been on the offensive for quite a while now, yet Jiang Badao's defense looked to be unbreakable. It was as if didn't see any of her attacks as a threat. Soft Mist had attacked for so long, but had only taken out 7% of Empty Wave's health. She was still very far from wiping away the lead that he held. It's about time for him to counterattack. The pro players who understood Jiang Badao's plans took another step ahead of the normal viewers. Jiang Badao was playing this fight very intelligently. He understood clearly that Tang Ru wasn't an opponent he could deal with through brute force. Facing her fierce offense, no one could be completely confident. Tang Ru was playing incredible today as well. Even the slightest slip-up and she would punish you heavily for it. As a result, Jiang Badao was using defense as his offense. From the start, he had been guiding Tang Ru's attacks. All of her attacks had been within Jiang Badao's predictions. Not only did it make it easy for him to defend, it was a mental test for Tang Ru as well. Having completely seen through her, Jiang Badao knew when exactly his counterattack would be most destructive. It was about time. The pro players all thought the same. Through Jiang Badao's control, Tang Ru's mix-ups were becoming less and less varied. At this point, her attack pattern was practically linear. What attack she would do next was something everyone could shout at. Falling Flower Palm, everyone guessed. Boom, Soft Mist used Falling Flower Palm. Draconic Crusher, sure enough, Dancing Fire Flowing Flames pressed down. Draconic Crusher. He can counterattack whenever. Everyone thought his opponent could be read like a book. Making a counterattack was no different than children's play. No, right now it was just a matter of when the counterattack would be the most harmful to Tang Ru. Dragon Tooth. The crowd shouted out Soft Mist's next attack, which Empty Waves dodged. Counterattack. Quite a few people shouted inwardly. They felt like a counterattack now would be quite good, but Jiang Badao didn't seem to be satisfied with it. Empty Waves rolled backwards, dodging the following circle swing. How greedy, everyone thought to themselves. He wasn't even going to take that. Was Jiang Badao really going to wait until an opportunity where he could kill her in one combo? Circle swing was dodged. Dancing Fire Flowing Flames leapt into the air. Sky Strike. Empty Waves leapt back while also putting up his divine chains in front of him just in case. The weapons clashed. A light chaser formed behind Soft Mist and shot directly towards Empty Waves. The distance was too close. The chaser was too fast. This time, Jiang Badao couldn't dodge the attack and was hit with a face full of sparks. Ha 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 ha, the pro players laughed out loud. Jiang Badao is being too careful, someone said. If he hadn't put up his sword, there wouldn't have been a chaser. He just gave her a free hit. Yeah, and it's a light element one. It'll increase her attack speed. Some of the pro players remarked in this way, but some of the others had a change in expression at this moment. Had the parry been unnecessary? The stadium screen coincidentally showed a replay of this scene to show the light chaser hitting empty waves again, but the pro players were more interested in how the chaser was formed. Sky strike, the distance, the parry wasn't necessary. Everyone thought to themselves. The dancing fire flowing flames quietly inched forward a bit as it arced upwards. Quite a few people blinked their eyes, confirming that they hadn't misjudged. Yes, dancing fire flowing flames had inched forward. This sky strike wasn't the same. Tang Ru had intentionally left some room for her to change things up a bit, because when facing a battle mage, it was best to avoid parrying or blocking the 5 low-level battle mage skills. If the skills hit, chasers would be formed. Blocking and parrying were considered as hits. Tang Ru had used this common knowledge to her advantage. She had intentionally made it so that it didn't seem like her attack needed to be parried, but just as the attack was made, she suddenly changed the trajectory. It wasn't as simple as it sounded. It required very precise inputs to make these sudden changes. The light chaser hit and soft mist continued to attack. Even though Empty Waves was able to dodge her attacks, he was clearly having a harder time than before. Still not counterattacking. Someone was still thinking. But a portion of people were now thinking, could he still counterattack? The mix-up from the sky strike hadn't been accidental, but was this the only time she had made this mix-up? Whether it was the broadcast or the live stadium replay, none of them would rewind too far back. The pro players had only noticed the problem with this sky strike. They had no way to go back right now and check if she had done it before too. Could it be that Jiang Batao had not counterattacked, not because he was waiting for the right moment, but because he was actually being suppressed? From when did this start? Chapter 1672, Top Rookie. Chapter 1672, Top Rookie Translator, Namyami Editor. Namyami, when did it start? Jiang Batao was also asking the same question. He had been leading Tang Ru around, controlling the pace of the match. He had always felt like his strategy had been successful. Everything was in his grasp. He could read every mix-up that came at him. Not once did any of Tang Ru's actions fall outside of his predictions. He had planned in advance, waiting patiently for an opportunity. He hoped to finish the match decisively with an overwhelming counterattack. This sort of finish would be more reliable, and it would improve the team's morale. 2 birds with 1 stone. However, the opportunity never came. Jiang Batao couldn't help but admire Tang Ru. On this grand stage, in the decisive Game 3 of the finals, she was attacking and attacking but with no success, yet she didn't become impatient and persevered. Let alone a rookie, even an experienced player might not have such strong mental toughness. She persevered. Jiang Batao didn't back down either. Keeping this same pace would be favorable for him in the long run. The flow and tempo of the match was completely within his grasp. All he needed was one reliable opportunity, whether that was a mistake on her part or a slight lapse in concentration. Just one was enough. But there was none. The previous Dragon Tooth, Circle Swing, and then Sky Strike, Jiang Batao predicted them all. After the Dragon Tooth, many people felt like he could counterattack, but Jiang Batao hadn't. It hadn't been because he felt like the opportunity wasn't good enough, but rather in his eyes he hadn't seen an opportunity. At that moment he felt a shock go through his heart. Dragon Tooth into Circle Swing, it had been a quick follow-up. If he had counterattacked after the Dragon Tooth, he would have been caught by the Circle Swing. As a result, he couldn't counterattack and could only dodge. Dragon Tooth and Circle Swing had been both easily evaded by Jiang Batao. Then Sky Strike, as expected. Jiang Batao's Empty Waves hadn't stopped to take a rest. After rolling away from the Circle Swing, he had jumped to avoid the following Sky Strike. If he didn't need to parry, he wouldn't. This sort of common battle mage knowledge wasn't something he would overlook. But at that moment, Soft Mist's spear had suddenly extended forward. Had he seen that wrong? Jiang Batao didn't know if he had seen it wrong, but he wasn't going to take the risk. He had parried, giving Tang Ru a light chaser. But compared to getting knocked into the air by Sky Strike, he definitely preferred the former. Thus, he had put up his sword Divine Chains. His question was answered. Soft Mist's dancing fire-flowing flames struck empty waves Divine Chains. The light chaser shot out. Even if Jiang Batao had wanted to dodge, chasers had auto-targeting. The chaser hit, and Soft Mist's attack speed increased. Her offense continued. The single chaser hitting hadn't been enough to give Tang Ru much of an opportunity to injure his opponent. The normal players didn't think too much of it. After all, she had been on the offensive the entire time. It wasn't possible for Jiang Batao's empty waves to take absolutely zero damage. Even though he had dodged most of the attacks, he had still lost 7% over the course of the battle so far. However, the pro players knew that this time was different. Because this time, Jiang Batao had lost his calm. He didn't have the same foresight as before. The parry had been in haste, meaning it had been outside of his expectations. The tempo was no longer in his control. The flow of the battle was no longer completely dictated by him. Not long after the chaser hit, Jiang Batao's empty waves was suddenly hit again. Even though it was just a normal attack with low damage, the pro players were no longer looking at the numbers. Jiang Batao's control over the fight was slipping. Had Jiang Batao not been able to think of this normal stab? No, impossible. The attack had been obvious. Even a normal player understood that this follow-up would be next. He knew, but he couldn't avoid it. It wasn't just a slight shock through Jiang Batao's heart, but rather a deep sense of danger. It wasn't any sort of crazy mix-up, nor was it anything new. This was a change done through force by relying on one's reaction speed and technique. This was what it meant to have talent. And right now, Tang Ru was putting her talent on display. She wasn't just recklessly erupting with hand speed, but meticulously manipulating the details to create changes. Incredible. No one knew who said it. No one responded, but everyone knew that this praise wasn't towards Jiang Batao but Tang Ru. At this moment, everyone realized that Happy's rookie could no longer be seen as a rookie. This rookie had probably already established herself among the top players of glory. Compared to the top rookies each season, Season 2's Blossoms and Blood, Season 3's Wang Jixi, Season 4's Golden Generation, Season 5's Zhou Zek. During their debut season, all of them had already reached the level of gods. However, as the competition got fiercer and the alliance grew, the luster of the top rookies seemed to decline with each season. After Season 6, only Sun Xiang had been given the title as one of the gods after his rookie debut in Season 7. As for the ones after, Season 8's best rookie, Xiao Yu, he wasn't even an all-star. Season 9's best rookie, Lu Hanwen. He had attracted a lot of attention because of his age. The mental fortitude and maturity at his age won much praise. Everyone was certain that he would have a glorious future, but no one thought that he was at the level of the gods yet. As for Tang Ru, when comparing these rookies, everyone suddenly realized that Tang Ru's situation was similar to Lu Hanwen's, but also different. Lu Hanwen had been given some lenience because of his age. Everyone's expectations for him were naturally lower. As for Tang Ru, because of the 1v3 fiasco, a whole bunch of people cursed her the entire season. Everyone's expectations for her were very harsh. If she didn't do a 1v3, then all sorts of criticism and ridicule were thrown at her. But 1v3, what sort of criteria was that? Using a 1v3 as a criteria wasn't just harsh, but deliberately making things difficult for her. If people had looked at her performance over the entire season without bias, then the alliance giving her the title of best rookie should have been indisputable. High ambitions, strong mental fortitude, frightening talent, and constantly improving in glory, knowledge, and technique. Of the many traits that Tang Ru possessed, the only flaw that she had was her age. Tang Ru wasn't too young of a player at 23 years old. In the early years of the pro scene, many players this age would choose to retire. In the current scene, her age was where her skill and experience should be at its peak. As for how long this peak period lasted, it depended on the person. On average, there would usually be a decline after 1 or 2 years. But for Tang Ru, this was her first season. Her skill was still increasing, but her age wouldn't be able to carry her to the peak. Truly a pity. Everyone thought to themselves. But apart from pity, there was also a bit of joy. After all, she was an enemy. Even though it wasn't the manliest of thoughts, who cared if you were born at the wrong time? Those retired top players during Ye Xiu's reign probably all had thoughts of if only there was no Ye Xiu. At this moment, Tang Ru had unexpectedly given them thoughts of running away. Everyone wanted to run, but Jiang Batao couldn't. He can't hold on. When everyone's focus went back to the match, they saw Jiang Batao's empty waves continuing to retreat in defeat. His previous retreat had been out of free will. He had been guiding Tang Ru along, but his current retreat was out of helplessness. He didn't have a second choice. I can't keep retreating any longer. Jiang Batao was clear about this point. If this continued, empty waves would lose too much health. An explosive counterattack might not be enough to win. Right now, he needed to be unyielding. He needed to fight against Tang Ru blow for blow. There should be an opportunity to do so, no? Jiang Ba observed and thought. He had been giving in to her offense the entire time. Tang Ru should have formed a certain mindset by now. If he suddenly rushed forward, even if he couldn't make it an explosive counterattack, it should at least mess up her rhythm. Tyrant's destruction. Soft mists dancing fire flowing flames swept outwards again. Jiang Batao had also finished formulating his plan. Now, he had to do it now. Too much thinking and too much preparation would actually make it easier for Tang Ru to be on guard. He needed to move suddenly and unexpectedly. He needed to create an opportunity when it wasn't one. Empty waves jumped forward as if he were planning on crashing straight into Tyrant's destruction. But when he jumped, empty waves curled up his legs so that soft mist spear would be beneath him. Just this isn't enough. Jiang Batao knew it clearly. He had experienced Tang Ru's speed from a close distance. Although it looked like he had already dodged Tyrant's destruction, Tang Ru could definitely adjust in time. But he wasn't afraid because empty waves had made his move. Jiang Batao wasn't looking for a breakthrough with this attack. He just wanted to shake things up, make a trade. For him, the trade would be favorable for him. Unyielding. Jiang Batao showed that he could be unyielding too. Tang Ru didn't retreat. She obviously wouldn't. As long as she was still fighting, there was no such thing as retreat. Swordlight flashed, magic waves jumped, empty waves wave wheel slasher arrived. As for Tyrant's destruction seemed to have stopped, but there was no change. Soft mist raised her other hand. Magic quickly began to flow around her. Not good. Jiang Batao realized what it was. His heart burned with worry. He just hoped that his attack would reach in time. But in the end, the magic waves surged, locking in place an afterimage teleport, the bonus skill on her weapon. A battle mage choosing teleport wasn't anything surprising. Sung Xiang often chose this skill. Jiang Batao hadn't overlooked this possibility, but he just didn't think she could teleport at this distance. The attack was already upon her, and she actually used teleport. This confidence and bravery exceeded his imagination. It seemed more likely that the teleport wouldn't go through in time, but Tang Ru wasn't afraid of the outcome. What she showed was her determination to win even if the wave wheel slasher had hit. Only by having this determination would she be so decisive during these moments, and it was only by being decisive was she able to successfully dodge the wave wheel slasher with teleport. Soft mist instantly vanished from Jiang Batao's sight. Behind, Jiang Batao immediately guessed. However, empty waves was in the air. He immediately canceled the skill and used falling light blade to try alter his fall, but he was too late. Dancing fire flowing flames struck his waist, circle swing. Empty waves was thrown back, but he didn't slam into the ground. Tang Ru had thrown aside the circle swing's damage, using it just to get empty waves closer. The skill was cancelled and empty waves regained his mobility. Jiang Batao reacted quickly, using falling light blade again. But what welcomed was him, 100 Dragon Meteor Strike. Afterimages of dancing fire flowing flame appeared all around him. Tang Ru didn't think about where he would dodge to. She used this skill to block all of Jiang Batao's options. Falling light blade immediately collapsed in front of 100 Dragon Meteor Strike. Empty waves was instantly skewered countless times. Empty waves was knocked back and soft mist chased after him, attacking as she moved to deal as much damage as possible with 100 Dragon Meteor Strike. She wasn't done yet. Dragon Tooth. After the 100 Dragon Meteor Strike, she followed with a Dragon Tooth. Hit stun, there was no need to ask whether the next attack would hit. Dragon breaks the ranks. Tang Ru followed with a high-level skill. Soft mist wielded dancing fire flowing flames pressing against empty waves. Forward, 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 there was only forward. With unstoppable momentum, empty waves was pushed far back. Jiang Batao was waiting for the instant the skill ended. Boom! Dragon breaks the ranks reached its end. The condensed magic burst apart in the air, creating an explosion. Empty waves flew back from the shockwave, but he didn't miss this opportunity to attack. Light wave slash. The fastest wave slash instantly formed, slicing towards soft mist. Jiang Batao reacted extremely fast, his timing was on point. But Tang Ru didn't lose out. After Dragon breaks the ranks ended, soft mist jumped back and pointed with her spear. Furious Dragon strikes the heart. Dancing fire flowing flames pass through the light wave slash. One was physical, while the other magic. The two skills collided, neither interfering with each other. Pooh, pooh. Soft mist was hit by the light wave slash, leaving a sword mark on her leather armor. Empty waves wasn't able to dodge the pursuit of furious Dragon strikes the heart. The magic pierced through his back. Soft mist stumbled but quickly steadied herself. Empty waves had been hit by the furious Dragon strikes the heart while in the air and was sent flying back. Land roll, he immediately steadied himself, but the scene to his left and right made Jiang Batao feel a little strange. In front of empty waves was a wooden sign. He was looking at the back of the wooden sign. It was very rough and there was nothing there. What he couldn't see was the front of the wooden sign, the 3 words, Death to Intruders. Chapter 1673. Good thing there's no more Chapter 1673. Good thing there's no more translator, Namyami editor. Namyami, there were no words on the back of the crude wooden sign, but Jiang Batao already realized what this was. He had actually retreated for so long, for so far, and now he had taken one step inside. Could he still leave? Empty waves didn't immediately die. It was like Wei Chen had predicted. The design of this map did not include insta-kill. Previously, Fang Rui's Boundless Sea had taken one step into the Forbidden Zone, causing the NPCs to appear and attack him. And Jiang Batao's empty waves had actually let his entire body enter the Forbidden Zone. In just 1 second, the NPCs appeared. In just 1 second, empty waves was surrounded. In just 1 second, the back of the wooden sign vanished from Jiang Batao's sight, because sword slashes and all sorts of attacks now blocked his view. The situation was very bad, but Jiang Batao didn't plan to give up so easily. 1 second for the NPCs to appear and attack. 1 second was enough for a skilled pro player to make many judgments and complete many controls. Nebula wave slash. At the same time as the NPCs attacked, Jiang Batao's empty waves was also already attacking, without holding anything back. Surrounded on all sides, that was the perfect time to use the powerful Nebula wave slash, that both attacked and defended. The wave energy swirled, expanded, enveloped, hit. With empty waves at the center, a half-sphere steadily grew. In the system statistics, empty waves combo count was leaping like crazy. In this moment, unleashing such a powerful attack, who knew how many targets he'd struck simultaneously? It was very satisfying, very cool. But no one could smile. Even though he'd used this powerful attack, Jiang Batao had only managed to prevent empty waves from getting trapped in the encirclement of NPCs. But now he still had to continue to struggle with these NPCs. This one powerful attack couldn't completely clean them up. Moreover, there was still Tang Ru. Correct, Tang Ru was still there. 1 second the NPCs appeared, the NPCs attacked. 1 second Jiang Batao controlled empty waves to use nebula wave slash, breaking the encirclement. 1 second Tang Ru's soft mist charged forward, stop and watch. No, not at all. If not for sending empty waves flying with an attack earlier, which put some distance between them, she might have beaten the NPCs to attack him now. In the end, Soft Mist's attack was only late by this 1 second. Nebula wave slash still hadn't ended. The wave energy was still rippling along empty wave's short sword. A red silhouette suddenly appeared above him. No retreating, no dodging, Soft Mist charged forth, shattering the lands, a level 75 battle mage skill, shaking against empty wave's nebula wave slash. Boom! Soft Mist was like a scarlet comet piercing through the nebula. She couldn't help but take some damage, but the shattering the lands continued forth. Jiang Batao had no way to dodge, and empty waves had nowhere to dodge. Shattering the lands, the magic energy barreled forth, hitting empty waves and carrying the NPCs. Tang Ru didn't care about all that. She let everyone witness her plan. But in this moment, what everyone saw was her letting everything out from top to bottom, so much so that Jiang Batao's empty waves seemed like a dead man. Empty waves wasn't a dead man, but he wasn't far from it now. When attacking by defending, Soft Mist had whittled away some of his health. Then, after losing the initiative, many of Soft Mist's attacks had landed upon him. And now, fallen into the forbidden zone, he faced the focused fire of the NPCs, and then Soft Mist's powerful attack that ignored all else. Too difficult. Blasted by shattering the lands, empty waves staggered, and his control of nebula wave slash slipped. The NPCs didn't care whether they lived or died. They didn't know where the flaw was in Jiang Batao's control of nebula wave slash was. They ignored everything else and simply attacked in the most convenient way, and instantly there were countless attacks crashing in. Tang Ru's Soft Mist was included as well. The shattering the lands had drawn the aggro of some of the NPCs, but she was as focused and determined as before as she continued to turn empty waves into a dead man. Helpless. Jiang Batao didn't give up, but empty waves' health was gone. Just like that, it was used up. Originally, he could have fought his way out of the crowd, circled around, perhaps even taken advantage of the NPCs like Fang Rui had. However, Tang Ru's attack was only late by 1 second. And this 1 second wasn't because she hesitated, but because Soft Mist needed this 1 second to reach him. Tang Ru's resolve extinguished Jiang Batao's last hope. 1 second they were close, yet 1 second had decided who lived and who died. Soft Mist lived, empty waves died. The stadium was silent. Tang Ru won, happy won. This was a 1v3. After Fang Rui's diligent chase and Tang Ru's returned 1v3, the huge advantage that Zhou Zekai had won for Samsara with his 1v3 was erased just like that. Happy had made their comeback. Before this round, the fact that Happy had closed the gap was already enough to cause the upset Samsara fans to boo their home team. And now, not only had the gap shrunk, they had lost. They'd had such a big advantage, such a big lead, and then Fang Rui, Tang Ru, 2 of Happy's players had completed a reversal. Samsara's fans were beyond upset. They were upset to the extreme. At this moment, a line of text suddenly appeared in the chat. "Ah, no more opponents, I still have a lot of health." Soft Mist was going through the victory poses with the air of triumph. But behind her, Tang Ru was actually sighing, regretful. 1v3 still wasn't enough. Did she still want to fight another for a 1v4? How arrogant, how presumptuous. But seeing how much health Soft Mist had remaining, Samsara's fans felt that they couldn't do anything. Soft Mist still had 52% health left, a little over half. Against Lu Boyuan, perfect win. Against Du Ming, used 27% health. Against Jiang Batao, used 21% health. Not only had Tang Ru completed a 1v3, it was an extremely good 1v3. Killing 3 characters had required less than half her health. It wasn't any exaggeration to call this one-sided. And the opponents she'd faced were strong. Du Ming's fame might have been a little smaller, but he was still part of Samsara's main championship roster. Jiang Batao and Lu Boyuan didn't need to be talked about. These were all-star level players. And then a mere rookie, even if she was the best rookie, using less than half health, had defeated all 3 of them. This was an even stronger showing than Zhou Zekai. After Zhou Zekai completed his 1v3, Cloud Piercer had 45% health remaining, less than half. At that time, the whole stadium had been cheering for a 1v4, so now, for Tang Ru with a character at 52% health to sigh about not having the chance for a 1v4, was it excessive at all? The Samsara fans were extremely depressed. Finally, Happy's fans came back to their senses. 1v3, Tang Ru had actually done it. In the group arena of the finals, she'd made a comeback against the championship team Samsara. In just one moment, some people were laughing so hard they started to cry. The image of Samsara's stadium cheering for a 1v4 after Zhou Zekai's 1v3 was still vivid in their minds. And now, seeing Tang Ru's sigh, they felt that it was extremely appropriate. Thus Happy's fans quickly began to shout in answer, "Good thing there's no more." It was common for fans in the stadium to spit trash talk at each other. Samsara's fans understood this kind of mockery. They'd lost the battle, that was fact. They couldn't find anything to retort. Their players weren't making a good showing. So when the group arena officially ended and the 2 teams left the stage, Samsara's fans weren't polite. Boos. Last round, Jiang Batao's outstanding performance had led the crowd to sing, but this time they were extremely upset, seething with anger. The booing was non-negotiable. They'd had such a huge lead, yet the opponent had caught up, and ultimately they'd been beaten by a rookie completing a 1v3. It was frankly a disgrace. What were the players doing? Had they gotten too proud and complacent after their lead? The crowd booed like crazy, not just to vent their frustration, but also to send a reminder to the team to make their players wake up. They couldn't continue like this in the upcoming team competition. During the rest period between the group arena and the team competition, the stadium never quieted down. After the huge ups and downs of the group arena, both Happy and Samsara chose to return to their prep rooms to rest. Both player areas were empty, yet the booing didn't stop. And after seeing high point after high point during this group arena, the pro players watching had also gotten excited and could no longer watch from a purely rational perspective. I'd place a bet, if Samsara really could send up one more person, Tang Ru would have actually gotten a 1v4. Huang Xiaoshan's excitement right now was rather evident. Samsara's morale has definitely suffered a heavy blow. Their adjustment during this intermission is especially important. Xiao Shikin liked to make general observations. Even Samsara's fans can't take it anymore. Zhang Jiao felt the atmosphere of the stadium. He was fairly sensitive to the mood of fans. "This is the first time I've heard Samsara get booed here," sighed Yang Kong, who'd been competing in the pro circle for 7 years now. "Same for all of us," said a number of people. "Honestly speaking, do you guys think Samsara was playing poorly?" Chu Yunxiu suddenly said. Sun Xiang was pretty good. Zhou Zekai doesn't need to be mentioned. There was no debate about these two players that Tang Hao named, and after these two, Lu Boyuan's condition wasn't very good, said Han winking. Du Ming's condition wasn't too bad, though, Wang Jixi nodded. Jiang Batao's plan was fairly clear and the execution was also quite good, but unfortunately, Yu Wenzhou trailed off. Unfortunately, Tang Ru's performance was better. After the three major captains commented, Zhang Xinji finished the sentence that Yu Wenzhou had left unspoken. Yes, that was how it was. Whoever played better would win. The principle was just that simple. Competitions really were decided by one side doing well and the other doing worse and losing. One side does well, yet the other side does better. This kind of helplessness was the main theme on the battlefield. The pro players didn't really agree with the boos of the stadium, but there was nothing to be done. Tang Ru had played a 1v3. That performance was just too sharp, too powerful, too domineering. Even though Du Ming and Jiang Batao had been in good condition, they could only pale in comparison. How would the two teams play the team competition? Right now, everyone was already thinking about the team battle that would decide the final victor. The map for the team competition had already been randomly chosen. Because the two teams had both returned to their prep rooms to rest, when the map info was broadcast to the stadium, it was simultaneously sent to the prep rooms of the two teams. Chapter 1674, the team roster to sprint for the championship. Chapter 1674, the team roster to sprint for the championship. Translator. Namiyami Editor. Namiyami abandoned capital in the heavens. When the audience saw the information about the final team battle map, Happy and Samsara got the information at the same time in their respective prep rooms. The digital display screen, the holographic projection, the televised broadcast, and the small screens in the two teams' prep rooms, they all simultaneously presented an overview of this map. Everyone was shocked. In the holographic projection, what appeared on stage was a circular island peacefully floating in midair, bathed in starlight. The pro players immediately began discussing what they saw. Insta-kill map. This was the first thing they thought. A so-called insta-kill map referred to a map that had areas where a character's health would instantly drop to 0. In the inevitable confrontation map of the group arena just earlier, both ends of the map had had an intruders die area, which made it seem like an insta-kill map. However, because those intruders die areas didn't directly kill the characters, but rather relied on the NPCs attacking them, this meant that the players could still defend themselves. Therefore, inevitable confrontation couldn't be considered an insta-kill map. On the other hand, this abandoned capital in the heavens map was floating in the air. If a character reached the edge of this map, they would fall off. This could be an insta-kill mechanism. The final battle would take place on an insta-kill map. The pro players all discussed amongst themselves. The more important a match, the more a team would tend to be conservative and cautious. Unexpected things tended to happen on insta-kill maps, so if a team had the choice, they would tend not to select an insta-kill map for an important match. Everyone hoped to achieve victory through their own strength and hard work, rather than be suppressed by this kind of unexpectedness. Yet now, the final battle of the playoffs was taking place on an insta-kill map. Just as everyone was talking about this, they suddenly saw a veil of light expanding above the island, eventually enveloping the entire map. Next, a simple explanation appeared, and the first sentence ended the pro players' discussion. This was not an insta-kill map. The shroud of light would protect characters from falling off of the island. The pro players instantly starting booing. Couldn't have said that earlier. Made everyone discuss for nothing. The camera zoomed in, beginning to display the features of this map. A bleak and desolate expanse of ruins appeared before everyone's eyes. Two structures that looked like Aztec pyramids were the most preserved features of these ruins. A quiet river flowed behind the two structures, and on the other side was a tranquil stretch of forest. Bathed in starlight, the tree trunks, leaves, the shades of gray all seemed to be tinted a faint blue. In front of the two structures, trees were also growing out of the city ruins, quietly erasing the remnants of this ancient city. As the various pro players saw this map, they automatically began drawing up strategies and how they would play, based on their team's style and class roster. And Happy and Samsara, after seeing this map, began to formally decide their roster for the team battle. The atmosphere in Samsara's prep room had been oppressive this whole time. After being overtaken by the opponent performing that kind of 1v3, their morale would take a blow, no matter how strong or solid their confidence was. Right now, everyone was fairly depressed. At times like these, someone needed to say something. But Samsara's captain was Joe Zekai, who'd had a flawless performance in the group arena. Forcing him to say something now would just be too hard on him. Vice-captain Jiang Badao was usually the one who led the motivational words and such before a match. But in the group arena just now, he had been the anchor who was unable to stop Tang Ru from playing a 1v3 and completing Happy's comeback. He was part of the reason for damaging Samsara's morale, so if he said something now, the effect probably wouldn't be very good. Jiang Batao clearly understood this point, and so he didn't say anything either. So when they returned to their prep room, the first to open their mouth was actually Sun Xiang. "Everyone, get your spirits up. It's only 1 point, all we need to do is win it back in the team competition," Sun Xiang said. These were the words, this was the logic. Everyone nodded after hearing it, but after that, there was no after that. Everyone heard Sun Xiang's words and they tried to snap out of it, but ultimately this depression in their hearts couldn't be dispelled. At that moment, the map that they would be using for the team competition was announced. "Let's look at the map first," Fang Minghua said. The prep room quieted down. Everyone watched the map introduction. Very soon the introduction finished. Abandoned capital in the heavens, it floated in midair, very close to the stars, but the contents of this map weren't especially new or unique. It was just another environment that they weren't too familiar with. But faced with this unfamiliar environment, they still needed some strategy and planning. Before that, they needed to decide on their roster so that their plans could be specific. Everyone realized what was about to happen next. Samsara's reserve players, even though they knew that it was extremely unlikely that they would be appearing in this finals match, still couldn't help but hold a sliver of hope in their hearts. Who would be fighting in the final match? Fang Minghua finally spoke once again. "Boyuan, your condition today isn't too good." Lu Boyuan was startled. He knew what Fang Minghua meant by these words, and he was saddened. Of course, he didn't want to lose the chance to appear in the final battle, but he knew that Fang Minghua spoke the truth. Last match he hadn't been in good condition, and during the 2 days' rest he was in deep sorrow as he made up his mind to play well today. Yet, it hadn't played out the way he'd hoped. The team hadn't immediately given up on him when they'd seen his subpar condition. They gave him time to adjust. But now, in the team battle that would determine the final victory, this truly wasn't the time to place a bet on whether he could settle back into his normal condition. Yes, Lu Boyuan was saddened, but he wasn't surprised. He couldn't let his subpar condition continue to drag down the team. He accepted Fang Minghua's judgment, and he would respect the decision that was coming. Fang Minghua discussed with Zhou Zekai and Jiang Badao for a few moments, and finally this decision was announced. "And Boyuan, you can take a break during the team battle." Ultimately, it was Jiang Badao as vice-captain who made the announcement. "Understood." Lu Boyuan nodded. He was unhappy, but the team's victory was the most important. Individual feelings had to be set aside for now. "Team competition, Wu Qi, you'll replace Boyuan in the starting lineup," Jiang Badao announced. "All right." Wu Qi nodded. Before Sun Xiang had joined, Lu Boyuan, Wu Qi, and Du Ming were all part of Samsara's main roster. After Sun Xiang had joined and firmly taken up one spot, there were only 2 spots left for the 3 of them. Lu Boyuan was an all-star, somewhat more famous than the other 2, so his spot was naturally a bit more stable. Thus, Wu Qi and Du Ming entered into rotation. Last match, Wu Qi hadn't played. This time, now that Lu Boyuan's condition wasn't good, this player who'd also been a main part of their consecutive championship roster finally had the chance to play in the final battle. Even though his popularity was a bit lower than Lu Boyuan's, within the team, everyone had the same trust in him as they did for every other player. "Play well." Lu Boyuan was the first to go up, patting Wu Qi's arm. "I will," Wu Qi nodded. He didn't seem very outwardly excited. At this moment, Du Ming's heart was beating very rapidly. Wu Qi's spot was confirmed, and Zhou Zekai, Jiang Bata, Sun Xiang, Fang Minghua, the spots of these 4 players were very set. Then for the final spot would he be playing? Even though Du Ming frequently appeared in the starting roster, his position wasn't stable. Even Lu Boyuan had been switched off, which instantly caused him to worry. After all, he had been 1v3D in the group arena Du Ming. But just as he was worrying, he suddenly heard his name called. Du Ming immediately stood up. "Team competition, you'll be 6th player." "Ah, oh," Du Ming was overjoyed. But he was considerate of Lu Boyuan, who'd just been switched off, so all he did was quietly clench his fist. After that, it was basically a formality to announce Zhou Zekai, Jiang Batao, Sun Xiang, and Fang Minghua. No one would think that these players would sit on the bench for such a critical match unless they were in really bad condition. "Then let us 6 players chase that 1 point," Fang Minghua said after the roster was finalized. No fierce speeches, no light humor. But in the very normal process of studying the map and deciding the roster, the mood of the Samsara players gradually returned to normal. When the roster was finalized and they announced they were going to win this point, everyone's spirits were jolted. For the championship, everyone was very clear on what they'd been chasing all this time. Did it need to be said? No. All they needed was to walk on stage and win. They'd done this kind of thing once, twice, 3 times, many times. In these past 3 years, they were the team that best understood how to win. "Let's go." In the end, the silent Captain Zhou Zekai only said these 2 words. In this aspect, he really couldn't be considered a satisfactory captain. But after saying these 2 words, he walked at the very front, leading all of Samsara's players, those who would be playing and those who wouldn't be. Together, they walked that player passageway that was neither long nor short, returning to the main stadium area. Booing. There was no more booing. The booing had been to express their dissatisfaction with their earlier condition. And now, as Samsara walked toward the moments that would decide their final victory, what they needed was encouragement, and so what the fans gave them was encouragement. Applause and cheers greeted Team Samsara's players. And not long after them, Happy's players also returned to the main stadium area. It wouldn't be long until the final team battle began. Everyone was paying attention to the player areas, guessing at the team rosters. The judge appeared and called for the 2 teams' players. In each of the 2 player areas, 6 players stood up. Samsara, Zhou Zekai, Jiang Batao, Sun Xiang, Wu Qi, Du Ming, Fang Minghua. Applause. No matter who from Samsara was playing, the Samsara fans in the audience would give nothing but support and well wishes. And Happy. They also already had 6 people walking toward the stage. Ye Xiu, Su Ma Cheng, Tang Ru, Kaio Yifan, Bao Rongxing, and Wen Yi. Chapter 1675, We Will Chapter 1675. We Will Translator, Namyami Editor. Namyami. When Samsara's 6 players went on stage, everyone instantly noticed that their roster lacked Lu Boyuan, but no one was too surprised. After all, everyone had seen that he wasn't doing too well, and so it wasn't unexpected that he would remain sitting in the player area. But on Happy's side, when the 6 players came out without Fang Rui, everyone was shocked. Even Samsara's fans were confused as to why Happy didn't send Fang Rui up. After all, in recent matches, Fang Rui's performance had been too eye-catching. Last match, MVP, just that was enough to prove this. And today in the group arena, even though Tang Ru had been the one to complete the comeback with her 1v3, the sound of comeback had begun with Fang Rui, who had been the one to ultimately take down Zhou Zekai, who just completed a 1v3 and whose character was still at 45%. Fang Rui, and who had been the one to knock away most of chaotic Cloudy Mountain's health. Also Fang Rui. Such an outstanding performance, yet he wasn't playing in the final battle. Discussion began in the audience, and those who paid attention to news after matches immediately remembered the press conference of last match. They'd asked about Fang Rui, and Ye Xiu had indeed said, Fang Rui had worn himself out, and it was uncertain if he'd be able to play in the final match. Most people had treated this as a misleading smoke bomb, especially when Fang Rui did finally appear in the group arena. Many people who remembered this started discussing it again. But now, Fang Rui was still sitting in the player area. As Happy's players began their final sprint toward the championship, this player on their team with the highest salary and the strongest character was watching from the sidelines. Watching the backs of those six as they walked on stage, Fang Rui was also saddened. But he knew clearly that now wasn't the time to challenge his own spirit and stamina. He would be better off trusting his own teammates. Happy's players were all outstanding, who said that they couldn't do this without him. This excellent chance to shine, I leave it to you youngsters. After returning to the prep room, this was what Fang Rui grandly announced. He couldn't see it himself, but from the worry revealed in the eyes of his teammates that couldn't lie, he knew that he couldn't hide his condition from them anymore. Great, leave it to me, Steamed Bun said enthusiastically. Fang Rui was gratified. If everyone could be like Steamed Bun, he thought, this would certainly be a very sweet world. Senior, you've worked hard. Caio Yifen was always rather sincere. He clearly understood the reality of the situation. Fang Rui patted Caio Yifen, and his attitude was also very sincere. Without me, you guys will be the ones working very hard. Everyone laughed. But after laughing, they felt that these words, although shameless, were true. Fang Rui's strength, Boundless Sea's strength, were stronger than the new players and new accounts of Happy. Without him, the rest of them really would have to work very hard. Then we'll work harder. Ye Xiu nodded and began listing names. Team Battle Me Macheng Caio Yifen and Wenyi, he named four first, and those who'd been named all nodded. Ye Xiu's gaze turned to Tang Ru, tired after that 1v3. I'm still sunk in regret, Tang Ru said. Yes, regret. Those words that Tang Ru had said after that 1v3, almost everyone thought that it was mockery, but in reality, it really was regret, pure and simple. She felt that she could still challenge more players, but unfortunately, because of the match format, there'd been none left for her to fight. All right, you're about to have 6 more opponents, Ye Xiu said. Team battle, we 5 will start, and then 6th player. His gaze swept over. Luo Jai's heart rate quickened, and it became difficult for him to breathe. Will it be me? The final battle, me? I'm nervous, but I'm excited. These imaginings were suddenly shoved into the wall by Steamed Bun. Move aside, this sort of thing should obviously be left to the eldest brother, Steamed Bun said. 6th player will be Steamed Bun, Ye Xiu announced, and then he quickly explained to Luo Jai, but it's not because you can't beat him. I understand, Luo Jai nodded. And standing in the corner, Mo Fan, who always had an emotionless expression, now showed a flicker of disappointment across his face. But he didn't step forward to try and argue anything, and only squeezed his hands into fists. Ye Xiu saw it, and he knew that Mo Fan was very dissatisfied. Of the 5 people who'd appeared in the group arena, he was the only one who'd accomplished nothing, all because he didn't know the design of the map and accidentally triggered the ambushing troops. In the end, no matter how hard he tried, he'd still lost completely. Mo Fan wasn't in poor condition. If not for that accident, no one knew how that battle would have played out. But in the end, Ye Xiu still chose not to have Mo Fan appear in the team battle. Mo Fan didn't say anything, but Ye Xiu still gave him an explanation. What he said was simply what he'd told him long before, a sentence that was very simple and very ordinary. For now, you're still not used to playing in the team battle. Mo Fan's face was still expressionless, like every time Ye Xiu said anything to him. But this time, his fists, which were already clenched, tightened further. It wasn't that he hadn't played in a team battle before. During the regular season, Ye Xiu would still sometimes put him into the team battle. But unfortunately, after this season, although Mo Fan had made breakthroughs in his individual technique, he was still lacking when it came to playing in a team. Perhaps it was because of his natural personality, but even though he understood that team battles required teammates to coordinate, his performance was still extremely mechanical and clumsy. Not used to it, not suitable for it, other people could see it, and Mo Fan himself could feel it even more clearly. Ye Xiu only repeated this point, but it was convincing enough because that was just the reason. And then Wei Chen. For him, Ye Xiu also had an explanation, but it was only 2 words. "You understand," Ye Xiu said. "You bastard, don't you dare lose." Wei Chen slapped Ye Xiu. "Every season you were here I was the champion," Ye Xiu said. "Fuck." Wei Chen's expression darkened, but it was the truth. During those 2 seasons he and Ye Xiu had still been enemies. "So this time it should be the same," Ye Xiu said. "As long as we win, I'll be your mascot," Wei Chen said vehemently. "Mascot?" Everyone stared at Wei Chen. "How disgusting, just give me a cigarette," Ye Xiu said decisively. "Let's go, the final battle." Happy walked out of the prep room, and now Ye Xiu was walking with 5 others onto this ultimate battlefield. Once again, standing in this moment, Ye Xiu felt it was very familiar and yet at the same time not. Cheers, shouts, applause, it was all for the title that was about to be claimed. Who will be the champions? "We will," Samsara's 6 players said. "We will," Happy's 6 players also said. The battle began. Chapter 1676 came, left. Chapter 1676 came, left. Translator, Namyami. Editor, Namyami. The battle began, the map loaded, the characters loaded. The abandoned capital floating in the sky seemed so close to the stars. The entire world seemed to be in only one color, that gray-white suffused with a hint of pale blue. Under this starlight, even the multicolored equipment of the characters who had just loaded in seemed to be layered over with this light. Soft mist lifted her spear, 1-inch Ash gripped his takai, and they waited for Ye Xiu's instructions. Ye Xiu was a seasoned veteran, from the glory game to the professional stage. There was nothing he hadn't experienced before. But in this moment, he couldn't help but feel emotion swelling in his heart. From a small level 1 character in the new server, after 2.5 years, he was finally standing here once again. Right now, the 2 standing in front of him were the ones who had been walking alongside him since that very beginning. Aside from them, there was also Steamed Bun, still waiting in the substitute area, ready to come on stage at any time. And Suma Cheng, who had experienced with him the defeat they'd suffered the last time he was in this moment. It was this group of people. 2.5 years ago, they were still in the new server of glory, fighting with the pioneers of the other team guilds for dungeon records. Today, after 2.5 years, they were directly engaged with Glory's top team, striving for that proof of ultimate glory, the championship. They did it. Ye Xiu knew that in this moment there were certainly countless people who thought this. Starting from a new server, starting from zero, starting over, and at last reaching the finals. It was simply incredible. Yes, it was indeed incredible. But did that mean that they'd done it? Did this count as success? Not yet. The standard dictionary definition of success was obtaining the anticipated outcome, achieving a goal that was called success. The result they'd anticipated, the goal they wished to achieve, there was only one, winning the championship. Thus, they were still one step away from success. Start! Ye Xiu's order came down, and Lord Grimm took the first step outward, closely followed by the other 4 happy players. Start! Is Ye Xiu treating this as running a dungeon or killing a boss? Still saying start. In the broadcast, Pan Lin was chuckling, ridiculing Ye Xiu's choice of word. Heh, these people here, most of them were players Ye Xiu pulled from in-game, Li Yibo said. Happy had been playing the Alliance for a year now, and they'd garnered such attention as they fought their way into the finals. They'd accepted a number of interviews by now, and everyone knew a lot about their history. Aside from Sima Cheng and Fang Rui, who had officially transferred, the rest of them, including Blue Rain's former captain Wei Chen, were all people that Ye Xiu had encountered in-game and pulled together to build this team happy. In the beginning, they might have really been like what many ordinary gamers were familiar with, just a group of close friends in-game. But after they'd fought down this road together, this group of close friends was already standing on glory's highest stage. Start. This time, their goal was no longer any dungeon record or a wild boss. It was Team Samsara, it was the championship. Happy's spawn point was on the west, and right now, the 5 of them were moving eastward in formation. There weren't any clear road signs or markings on the map, but Happy's direction was quite clear. They were headed toward the western Aztec-style pyramid. Once they were close, however, they didn't stop below this pyramid, nor did they climb it. They turned north and circled around to the back of the pyramid. The back side winked with light. It was impossible to see if the tranquil river was flowing. Happy tested how deep the water ran, but they didn't take the water route. They simply continued east along the back of the pyramid. From this moment, everyone became even more vigilant. The 5 characters' views were pointed in 5 different directions, covering every inch of their surroundings. Theoretically, even if the 2 teams were moving toward each other at the highest speed, it was still too early for them to meet. Even so, after the experience of last round, where the team's spawn points were random and not necessarily opposite each other, both Happy and Samsara included this possibility in their calculations and entered battle condition early. Soon, Happy's 5 reached the end of the pyramid's back. The other pyramid that was still intact now entered their sight, and then they saw the silhouettes of Samsara's 5. Samsara's choice in the beginning of the match was also to first reach the pyramid that was close to them, but afterward, unlike Happy, they hadn't continued to advance. After reaching the pyramid, they began to investigate the surrounding area. Right now, the 5 characters were all studying, and although they seemed to be scattered in reality, they maintained a formation that allowed them to coordinate battle at any moment. When Happy walked out from behind the pyramid and saw Samsara, Samsara also immediately saw Happy. In that moment, both sides stopped moving. They maintained their distance and observed from afar. The scene was still, but their chats instantly began flying with messages. Because it was a completely unknown map, they couldn't make any detailed plans based off of the simple introduction given right before the battle. In battles on random maps, there was significantly more communication and direction. Now that the 2 teams saw each other, Samsara's side instantly began laying out plans, messages flashing out one after another. There was rapid discussion and a final conclusion. But the players' characters didn't move, not until the messages practically filled the screen. Finally, there was a message, "Go." Everyone had read every line of instructions. When the final order came, the 5 players and the 5 characters began moving simultaneously. Long-range, short-range, healer, each of the classes performed their duties and joined together, taking advantage of the special characteristics of the map that they'd observed so far. They swiftly arranged themselves in a satisfactory formation. And then on Happy's side, an order was finally issued as well. "Retreat," said Ye Xiu. Happy left. They'd arrived casually from the back of the pyramid without probing, without spying. The 5 characters had rushed out as though pressed for time and stopped as soon as they saw Samsara. And then Samsara had carefully arranged themselves, making all sorts of preparations for battle, able to advance and attack, able to retreat and defend. They'd taken everything into consideration, and then Happy retreated. Samsara had actively prepared everything, but they didn't have an opponent. In the channel, Joe Zekai sent a rare message. It was just a string of ellipses. Even though he didn't speak much in the first place, reticence and speechlessness were still 2 very different moods. "What's Happy doing?" Pan Lin exclaimed. Over on Samsara's side, because of the numerous communications and instructions, even though there were many code-like abbreviations, everyone could still understand the basics. But Happy's side had no communications. Ye Xiu said start, and they'd set out. Ye Xiu said retreat, and they'd withdrawn. Watch for now, Li Yibo said. It wasn't clear whether watch for now referred to Happy's plan or was directing the audience to simply watch for now, right now. The ones who wanted to understand Happy's plan the most was still Samsara. But they didn't make any move. After expressing speechlessness, they immediately resumed their investigation of the area as though Happy had never appeared. No clash, just a sighting. The ordinary gamers were baffled, and the broadcast commentators needed to watch for now. But the pro players were already beginning to discuss. Happy probably wants to sound out Samsara's mood, Yu and Zhou said. Happy's plan, that basically meant Ye Xiu's plan. It wasn't just Pan Lin and Li Yibo, even Yu and Zhou, a master-level player, didn't dare to speak confidently. Samsara seems very steady, Xiao Shikin said. Things on the psychological level weren't easy to see through. But just from the way that Samsara ignored Happy's baiting-like movement, at least they weren't carelessly led by the nose by Happy. Then what next? Next, the broadcast screen and the live projection were both split in 2, so that everyone could clearly see both sides' movements. Samsara continued to investigate that area. Happy began to move upward along the pyramid from the back side. But Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm, after walking about halfway up, suddenly circled around from the back of the pyramid. Samsara, naturally, was waiting for any movement from this side. As soon as they saw Lord Grimm appear, they immediately had preparations. "Don't panic." Ye Xiu actually sent a message in the chat. "I just came to take a look," said Ye Xiu, and then his Lord Grimm actually just sat down right there on the eastern slope of that pyramid. "You guys keep working," Ye Xiu continued. "Little Joe, look at 3 o'clock behind you. Isn't that platform perfect for some sniping cover?" Ye Xiu actually began to point out things to Samsara. Chapter 1677, Hitting the Mountain to Warn the Tiger. Chapter 1677, Hitting the Mountain to Warn the Tiger. Translator. Namyami Editor. Namyami. Everyone was stunned. This was the finals, the final battle, the moment that would decide the outcome of a year of hard work. Unity, tension, seriousness, those should all be expected, but surely they could pass on liveliness. Yet now, while Samsara was very seriously studying the environment and preparing for battle, what was Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm doing? He was like a hooligan. A hooligan would be squatting at the intersection just next to the school and whistling at the cute girls that passed by. Lord Grimm was sitting on the pyramid and throwing all sorts of critical comments at Samsara. This scene wasn't right. It wasn't serious. But no matter how wrong it was, Ye Xiu was doing just this, and the words were already spoken. This match simply had this kind of style and rhythm. It still had to be watched, and the explanation and analysis still had to be made, no. And so the broadcast followed what Ye Xiu said, cutting to a close-up shot of the 3 o'clock direction behind Cloud Piercer, particularly that platform that Ye Xiu mentioned. Once this close-up was given, everyone took a look, and those that understood realized that Ye Xiu's words were completely correct. This location really was a very good sniping point. Ah, little Jiang, your wave slash can completely lock that path on your left, did you realize? Wu Qi, that ambush point in the 11 o'clock direction is a pretty good place to hide. Minghua, did you find the best place to heal from? If you found it, then go and stand there. What are you still spinning around for? And also, guy using one autumn leaf. Did you notice the distance between those two broken walls behind one autumn leaf? If evil annihilation is held horizontally, it can't pass through that space. Did you guys increase evil annihilation's length? It wouldn't have been like this before. In an instant, one sentence per person. The broadcast couldn't even keep up switching back and forth between shots, and ultimately just split the screen into multiple sections. These 4 people who were pointed out by Ye Xiu each got their own section of the screen. Everyone immediately realized, just like when he'd been talking to Zhou Zekai, Ye Xiu wasn't just making things up. The things he'd pointed out about these 4 players, whether big or small, were all very real issues. But would the Samsara pros really be incapable of discovering these things themselves? Of course not. After all, they'd been investigating this area for longer than Ye Xiu had. But the thing was, Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm had just casually sat down on the pyramid and casually said these things, yet every needle he'd sent had drawn blood. This demonstrated his skill. Added on to his bearing, it really felt like he was giving pointers to Samsara. Immature, shameless, disgusting. A few Samsara fans decried Ye Xiu's actions. It had to be said, trash talk could sometimes attack even the audience. But those who were at a higher level, especially the pro players, knew that this wasn't that simple. Ye Xiu's actions weren't just to show off from above. He was hitting the mountain to startle the tiger, warning Samsara by saying, "Be careful, I can see through all of your plans." And to be able to do this, Ye Xiu had made good use of the map. The 2 pyramids on this map could be called the high points, but because they were so large, even a launcher, the class with the longest attack range, could not effectively use supportive attacks when standing on the very peak. Furthermore, attacks from halfway up the pyramid would be extremely limited. Therefore, the high points of these pyramids could only be used as observation points, not any strategic points. Thus, Ye Xiu discovered the reconnaissance use of this location, and looking down upon them, he began to analyze Samsara's deployment. Before anything else, he was attacking Samsara on a psychological level. If Samsara could not restrain themselves and immediately came to attack Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm, then they would definitely suffer for it. Lord Grimm didn't need to be mentioned, and the other 4 happy players were already prepared at another side of the pyramid. If Samsara came their way to attack, Happy would have the map advantage. But when it came to pro players, the chances of that happening were far too small. In this kind of critical battle, Samsara definitely would not take an action like this that would put them at a clear disadvantage. But Happy still prepared for this possibility. Even though this was such a small chance, they would not pass it up. Samsara, as expected, was not so hasty. After being criticized by Ye Xiu, they only hesitated for a moment, but afterward everyone began to carefully discuss in their team chat. Directly charge Lord Grimm, sitting halfway up the pyramid. That possibility wasn't even mentioned. The match seemed to be locked in a stalemate. The small chance that Happy had hoped for didn't happen, and Samsara, having had all their plans and strategies exposed by the opponent, weren't sure how to continue. Switch to an area that Happy couldn't observe. Then what if Happy just didn't come? Would this battle of this match be triggered by the judge getting involved and forcing the 2 teams to meet? Happy was patiently waiting for Samsara's movements, and Ye Xiu wasn't idle. He helpfully named another few places on the map for Samsara to use, even some that accounted for strategic coordination between the players. Samsara was finally no longer silent. "God, ye has seen through us completely," Vice Captain Jiang Badao spoke. "What, like it's hard?" Ye Xiu said. Since you've seen through us, why not come give it a try and attack? Zhang Batao said. It was a very clear provocation, so clear that it was uninteresting. Sure, coming. Who would have thought that Ye Xiu's Lord Grim actually just stood up, and Happy's other 4 players immediately appeared on the side of the pyramid and began to charge down. Beat them at their own game, make the opponents second guess. Watching the match, Tiny Herb's Wang Jixi guessed at the intent behind Ye Xiu's actions. Such a clear provocation, yet Happy had actually directly accepted it. In Samsara's shoes, who wouldn't be second-guessing? Wang Jixi had the omniscient view and could see Happy's team chat, so he knew that Ye Xiu hadn't given any detailed strategic instructions to Happy. If not for that, he might also be wondering whether Ye Xiu actually had a strategy that could break through their arrangement. He definitely doesn't. If he did, he would have attacked way earlier. Right and Happy doesn't have any plans in their team chat. This is a random map. They only just saw this map for a bit from above. Their communication through glances isn't that incredible, right? Yeah, it's just a false show of strength to make Samsara worry. Then after that, the pro players were all discussing, and their opinions were essentially the same as Wang Jixi's. But after that, they all got stuck on this question. After that, let Samsara second guess, and then Happy would just charge forth and chaotically fight without any sort of plan. That was completely illogical. This was an advantage of random maps for the audience. Because the teams couldn't make any secret preparations before the match, more directions were needed during the battle. The strategic plans of the 2 teams could be completely seen from their team chats. But right now, Happy had actually had no plans. This was simply too irrational. What were they trying to do? Chapter 1678, Wording. Chapter 1678, Wording. Translator, Namyami. Editor, Namyami. Was it a feint? Or was it a bluff? There seemed to be only these 2 possibilities. Which one was it? The viewers were merely guessing for the fun of it, but for Samsara, the guessing would affect whether they won or lost this match. As a result, Samsara's guess was crucial. Everyone was staring intently at Samsara's team chat, observing the rapid discussion taking place there. Samsara didn't hesitate. They didn't waver because of these possibilities, because they didn't even bother discussing whether it was a feint or a bluff. From the beginning, the direction of Samsara's discussion was to look for a solution to both possibilities. Samsara rushed out. Whether it was a feint or a bluff, Ye Xiu was targeting their understanding of the terrain. Samsara had given up on utilizing the area that they were familiar with. Instead, they chose to leave and welcome Happy directly. Did Ye Xiu's words really have that much of a psychological impact on them? Not necessarily, but Samsara didn't lower their guard. It was similar to when Happy had been on top of the pyramid, fully prepared in the unlikely scenario that Samsara would brainlessly charge up the pyramid. In contrast, instead of just being prepared, Samsara wanted to eliminate even the unlikeliest of scenarios. Because of Ye Xiu's imposing air, everyone felt like the atmosphere of the match had been ruined. In reality, from these small details and from the way both teams approached this fight, the atmosphere wasn't ruined at all. It was completely in line with how the final should be, careful and cautious as if this was their last hope, refusing to let even the slightest possibility go. Finally, the 2 teams met. Samsara charged out from the ruins, while Happy charged down from above the pyramid, losing their height advantage. The 2 sides gradually approached, intentionally controlling their pace. Their footsteps were neither too fast nor too slow. Dancing Rain raised her hand cannon. Cloud Piercer raised his dual guns. These 2 long-ranged classes were about to enter each other's attack range. But the first to erupt wasn't the 2 long-ranged attackers but Happy's team chat. And fall back. Tang right, go around 3. Kaio right, follow 2. Su stay back, go high. 4 orders in quick succession. Go around 3, follow 2. Most of the viewers were confused. A few of the more attentive ones, who paid attention to how teams communicated with each other, could understand the general meaning behind these two phrases. Pan Lin and Li Yibo, the two commentators, had to be mentioned. Even though the two often made mistakes in their analysis, the two were quite diligent with their work. If they weren't skilled enough to understand the team's intentions, then there wasn't much they could do about it. However, the two had spent time going over things that could be studied, like how the team shot callers worded their orders to the team. Although Happy was a new team, their shot-calling style and wording wasn't too strange. After all, their shot caller was Ye Xiu, who had led excellent era for close to 8 years. His same shot-calling habits had been brought over to Happy, so Pan Lin and Li Yibo didn't need to put in much effort to grasp it again. Most people were confused by the phrases like "go around 3" and "follow 2", but Pan Lin was already yelling in astonishment. "Go around 3, follow 2. This map." Pan Lin's astonishment wasn't towards Ye Xiu's arrangements but the way he worded his orders. Because from what he understood, the phrases "go around 3" and "follow 2" were frequently used in their home game matches. In other words, they really only used these phrases in maps that they were familiar with. The numbers 2 and 3 weren't coordinates but rather an agreed-upon direction. It was suitable for some maps while unsuitable for others. But for a random map, Pan Lin blanked. Li Yibo had realized it faster than Pan Lin. He had been trying to piece together his understanding of these two phrases and the map's terrain, and he soon discovered that the pieces fit together perfectly. This terrain. Happy had observed this terrain from up on top of the pyramid, Li Yibo said. But they never communicated anything about it in the team chat, Pan Lin said. Certain agreed-upon things don't need to be communicated, Li Yibo said. Changes had begun happening in Happy's formation. Tang Ru and Xiu Yifan started moving towards the right, while Sima Cheng and Nwenyi had started moving back. Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm started moving to the left, leaving the front completely open. For a moment, Happy's healer was in Samsara's direct line of sight. This seemed to be a good opportunity for them to charge right through the middle to him, but Ye Xiu, Tang Ru, and Xiu Yifan were clearly planning on surrounding them. A pincer, it looked like one. But seeing the orders "go around 3" and "follow 2", Li Yibo explained that Happy's intentions were to separate the enemies. A random map has its advantages. Li Yibo sighed with emotion. His eyes were practically brimming with tears of excitement. If every match had shot callers clearly listing out their team's every move, then he would never make humiliating mistakes in his analysis. Communication through glances, tacit understanding, Li Yibo hated those deeply. Let's see how Samsara will respond. Right now is indeed a good opportunity for them to directly go for Happy's healer, but that would only be the case if Happy's goal is to pincer them. In reality, Happy's goal is to separate Samsara, as a counter to Samsara's attempt to charge straight through the middle, Li Yibo said. What will Samsara do? They haven't said anything in their team chat, but they're starting to make adjustments too, Pan Lin shouted. Cloud Piercer is lined up in the middle, one autumn leaf in front, healer at the center. Jiang Batao and Wu Qi behind. Samsara is planning on engaging in a frontal assault. A frontal assault. The expressions on the spectating pro players were grave. That was what their formation looked like. But it was too early to tell if that was their plan. Pan Lin elaborated on the positions of each of Samsara's players, but he didn't go in order of when they moved into position. This ordering was crucial. Communication through glances was done starting from one character, creating a butterfly effect where everyone else would react and fall into place. Samsara's change in formation had started with Zhou Zekai's Cloud Piercer, and Pan Lin had mentioned him first. By the time he had started discussing this point, Samsara's formation had been completed. He had just been going in order from front to back. But if you looked more closely, there was a difference in who moved first and who moved later. Zhou Zekai had been the first to move because he was the team's core. Next was Jiang Batao's empty waves, and then Fang Minghua, Wu Qi, and finally Sun Xiang. Sun Xiang moving last wasn't because he was the new player on the team or because he was the most lacking in synergy with the team. It was actually the opposite. Sun Xiang moving last was precisely the reason for why the ordering mattered. If Samsara had truly been planning on a full frontal assault, Sun Xiang's one autumn leaf, the team's spearpoint, should have been the fastest to react to Zhou Zekai's cloud piercer, because this frontal assault would be led by him. He needed to be the first to act so that the others could respond to his actions accordingly. But he moved last. The average viewer might not find anything strange about it, but to the pro players, it was suspicious. If Samsara's intentions were for a frontal assault, then this would be considered a mistake on Sun Xiang's part for being absent-minded. However, this wasn't a mistake. The steadiness that Samsara displayed in their formation gave the pro players a sense that Sun Xiang's lateness was to cover up something. But what was it? There wouldn't be a replay for it. For a moment, no one could see through it. They could only wait and see what would happen next. Samsara continued forward. It really did look like they planned on charging straight for Happy's healer. Happy's left and right flank had formed and were beginning to charge. A character suddenly rushed out from Samsara's formation towards Happy's healer. One autumn leaf. No cloud piercer. Samsara's offense had begun, but the one at the front was Zhou Zekai's cloud piercer. Chapter 1679, interrupt Chapter 1679, interrupt translator, Namiyami editor. Namiyami, the sound of a gunshot, wasn't surprising to anyone. Long-ranged classes almost always made the first attack. However, Zhou Zekai's cloud piercer didn't just attack, he charged forward. In the blink of an eye, Sun Xiang's one autumn leaf was left behind. What kind of rhythm was this? Everyone watching was astonished, but their doubts didn't last long. Zhou Zekai's cloud piercer started attacking, and the rest of Team Samsara soon followed. Did they attack too? No. None of the other four players coordinated attacks with Zhou Zekai. The four characters contracted the formation. One autumn leaf, laughing song, cruel silence. The three of them formed a triangle, protecting the one in the center. Jiang Batao's empty waves. Empty waves began casting. Magic started to emanate around his short sword, divine chain, as if it were trying to establish a connection with some sort of power. Lightning wave formation. The experienced players noticed the sparks of lightning flashing from divine chain and its surroundings, and deduced what empty waves was casting. The pro players immediately figured out Samsara's plans. It didn't matter whether Happy was trying to surround or separate them with a pincer. Under the protection of the Spellblade's lightning formation, Samsara would not be in danger. Zhou Zekai's cloud piercer became Samsara's main attacker, while the other four became his support. Samsara wasn't going to give Happy even the slightest opportunity. Can Happy interrupt it? Pan Lin spoke. He realized where the crucial point lay. The cameraman quickly switched viewpoints. The focus was first given to Suma Cheng's dancing rain. Then the camera moved towards Empty Waves. Empty Waves' position was very subtle. It was just outside of Dancing Rain's range. The camera turned again to Happy's other long-ranged character, Lord Grimm, Ye Xiu. Countless people were looking forward to what he would do. He always seemed to be able to do the impossible. Sure enough, Lord Grimm started to move. He had originally been hiding in the ruins. Suddenly, with a flicker, he came out from behind a broken wall. Gunshot. But no sound could be heard, because gunshots had been ringing the entire time. Zhou Zekai's cloud piercer had fired. Ye Xiu's Lord Grimm's sudden gunshot was perfectly in line with one of Cloud Piercer's gunshots. The two overlapped, one obscuring the other. The only sign that Lord Grimm had fired his gun was a flash of light. Everything had happened in an instant. The broadcast couldn't keep up with these changes just by switching between viewpoints. Fortunately, for the live audience, the stadium's projection technology allowed them to see a more comprehensive view of the battlefield. It was just that the details needed to be caught by the viewer themselves. Bang! A seemingly silent bullet shot out and exploded. Lightning was still crackling around empty waves' divine chains. Lightning began to gather around, creating a net of electricity. The interrupt failed. The bullet had been blocked by a jet-black streak of light. Spear, evil annihilation. The awe-inspiring one autumn leaf stood in Ye Xiu's way, putting a stop to his plans. This wasn't the first time, but no matter how many times Chen Yu saw this scene, she would always feel uncomfortable. The gunshot was blocked, and it was no longer possible for Ye Xiu to try again. Lord Grimm couldn't even see empty waves anymore from his position. Move, get to another position. But the cast time for lightning wave formation wasn't very long. There wasn't much Ye Xiu could do in that short window. There wasn't anything more Lord Grimm could do, but Happy's plan was to pincer Samsara from two sides. The left wing had been blocked, but the right wing had only just started. The two players on the right wing didn't have long-ranged capabilities. To interrupt empty waves, they needed to get close. Tang Ru's soft mist rushed forward, too impulsive. How crazy. The pro players let out sighs. They clearly didn't agree with Tang Ru's decision. The other side had 4 people in a fully defensive formation, yet she wanted to get close and break through it. She was practically sending herself into the tiger's mouth. Even if she successfully interrupted empty waves, what next? Soft mist would be surrounded by 4 players. Even if Ye Xiu and Kaio Yifen were close by, Happy would be in a very bad position. Dragon breaks the ranks. Soft mist charged forward as if she were unstoppable, bringing her unrelenting momentum from her 1v3 in the group arena. Maybe actually, seeing her grandeur, some of the people who felt like Tang Ru had been too impulsive suddenly weren't sure anymore. They felt like maybe she really could break through Samsara. Samsara responded as if they were facing a huge threat. They needed to put their all into their defense, but the one who stepped forward to face soft mist made everyone surprised. Laughing Song. Fang Minghua's laughing song, Samsara's healer, looked like he was planning on stopping Dragon breaks the ranks. How is that possible? Countless people cried out in astonishment. Laughing Song raised his cross, Angel's protection, and began casting a spell. This is a white light flew out in front of Laughing Song. Halo Smash, a paladin skill. At max rank, it was an unbreakable shield whether it was magic or physical. No attack could break past it. But Laughing Song was a cleric. This Halo Smash was a bonus skill on his weapon and could only be at rank 1. How could a rank 1 Halo Smash stop Soft Mist's Dragon breaks the ranks? The pro players quickly calculated in their heads. Halo Smash. Even at max rank, it would only be able to just barely block the attack. But at rank 1, Dragon breaks the ranks would be mitigated somewhat, but Laughing Song would certainly take a huge hit. But then again, looking at his positioning, as long as he could mitigate the blow, empty waves would be protected. Soft Mist would no longer be able to interrupt empty waves cast. Then there was no then. Her attempt would be done. The cast would be completed. Soft Mist's Dragon breaks would be stopped, and she would no longer have any more opportunities. Samsara was different though. Wu Qi's cruel silence had his dagger ready for when Soft Mist and Laughing Song collided. Silent Thunder. This was the name of the dagger in his hands. It kept a low profile, almost invisible inside Cruel Silence's sleeves. As expected, it won't work, seeing Samsara's response. Everyone who had thought that maybe Tang Ru could do it suddenly changed their minds. But to everyone's surprise, just before Soft Mist's Dragon breaks the ranks collided with Laughing Song's Halo Smash, Tang Ru canceled the skill. Turn, sidestep. Using the leftover momentum from Dragon breaks the ranks, Soft Mist suddenly slid to the side. Was there an opening there? The sudden change had astonished everyone. The others on Samsara had to put their attention on soft mist, but empty waves wouldn't be interrupted. The surrounding electricity suddenly formed a net. Lightning wave formation had been set down, but at the same time, on the ground where the lightning crackled, a flower of darkness quietly unfurled. Chapter 1680, Unevenness and Surprise. Chapter 1680, Unevenness and Surprise. Translator. Namyami Editor. Namyami Phantom Demon. 1-inch ash. Even though the live audience had the projections in the center of the stadium, giving them a comprehensive overview of the battlefield, many of them had still overlooked Xiu Yifan. No one had expected that from Ye Xiu to Tang Ru. Both of them had only been trying to get the enemy's attention. The one to complete the attack was Xiu Yifan's 1-inch ash, and 1-inch ash's attack target clearly wasn't to interrupt, but to trade. The lightning wave formation that Jiang Batao's empty waves placed down was primarily for defense. It was to stop Happy from getting close to them. In this sense, Samsara had succeeded. Neither Ye Xiu's Lord Grim nor Tang Ru's soft mist could get close. After Tang Ru canceled Dragon breaks the ranks, she quickly moved away. Instead of trying to force her way in through another opening like everyone thought she would do, she ran as fast as she could out of the lightning wave formation's range. Then there was Xiu Yifan's 1-inch ash. He didn't get close. He didn't need to get close. While Ye Xiu and Tang Ru attempted to interrupt Jiang Batao's cast, he hid himself and quietly began casting his own spell. Whether the interrupt succeeded or failed, Samsara's attention would be drawn away from him. By the time 1-inch ash appeared, he would be done casting, and it would be too late for Samsara to try and interrupt him. Dark boundary, darkness descended. The screens of 4 of Samsara's players went black as if the power had been cut off. The crowd went into an uproar. The battle had just begun. After only a single clash, the kings, Samsara, had suffered a huge loss. There were only 5 of them on the field, and 4 of the 5 had been caught in the darkness boundary. It was truly a rare sight. Samsara had overlooked Xiu Yifan's existence. This was absolutely a mistake on their part. However, at the same time, Happy's ingenious ploy had to be given credit as well, because of how uneven it felt. An unevenness in skill between players was a common issue in new teams. Happy was a new team. There was Ye Xiu, one of the greatest players of all time, leading the way. Then there was Sima Cheng and Fang Rui, 2 all-stars. After that, there was just a bunch of rookies. This unevenness was extremely apparent, and Wenyi was considered Happy's weakness precisely because of this disparity in skill. However, Happy took advantage of this problem, creating a lot of strategies revolving around it. In this match, they once again utilized it. Compared to Wenyi, Xiu Yifan had never been viewed as Happy's weak point. In fact, he was looked upon quite highly. Many Tiny Herb fans criticized the team for letting of such an outstanding player. Xiu Yifan shouldn't have been overlooked. The gap in skill between him and the top players on the team shouldn't have been so apparent. However, Happy set their own pace, creating this false image. First, Ye Xiu's Lord Grim charged out. Samsara had to focus their attention on him and answer back. Next, Tang Ru's soft mist charged out like a fierce tiger. Tang Ru had just achieved a 1v3 against them. Samsara obviously couldn't relax against her. The 2 of them quickly drew in all of Samsara's attention. In front of their imposing presence, Xiu Yifan seemed to be invisible. It was almost inevitable. Xiu Yifan didn't disappoint. He seized this opportunity well. There hadn't been any communication in Happy's chat during this time, but each of them seemed to naturally know what to do. The pro players, who paid attention to the details, also noticed that Wenyi's little cold hands had drawn in the attention of Zhou Zekai's Cloud Piercer. Sima Cheng's dancing rain couldn't be ignored by him either. Not only were Wenyi and Sima Cheng defending against Zhou Zekai's one-man assault, they were also taking away his attention. They had lured him to a position where he wouldn't be able to see 1-inch ash unless he turned his head back. It seemed to just be a mistake from Samsara, but how could it be so easy for such a low-level mistake to happen to Samsara? This was a match between the two top teams in the alliance. Most of the time, mistakes didn't just happen. The opposing team made the mistakes happen. Happy had successfully set up a situation that led to Samsara making a mistake. Now, 4 of Samsara's players were blinded. Don't leave anyone out, Fang Minghua reminded everyone in the team chat. Although the 4 of them had been blinded, they could still use the team chat. Everyone forward, Jiang Batao shouted. Forward. Which way was forward? Zhou Zekai's Cloud Piercer was forward. It seemed to be a fairly vague order, but everyone on Samsara immediately understood. The ones who hadn't been facing forward turned around. Despite being blinded, they were pretty close. Afterwards move. No disorder could be seen. The team moved together as one. Jiang Batao's empty wave swung his sword again. Nebula wave slash. He unexpectedly went with this level 75 skill. It could be considered as quite wasteful just for defense, but wastefulness had its value. Tang Ru had originally been planning on rushing into the lightning wave formation to attack them, but she had no choice but to change her mind. Although Jiang Batao was blinded, he was able to create a powerful barrier around the 4 of them with Nebula Wave Sword. However, moving together as one wasn't exactly the wisest choice to escape from a ghost boundary. This was because the enemy Ghost Blade could just set up another ghost boundary wherever they were going towards, catching them in another net. Samsara did it anyways because they had one person who had not been caught, Zhou Zekai, Cloud Piercer. After seeing his teammates' movements, he immediately started assisting them. His first task was to stop Caio Yifen's 1-inch ash from placing down another ghost boundary. Turn fire. The bullets flying towards Little Cold Hands instantly shifted towards 1-inch ash. However, Cloud Piercer couldn't actually see 1-inch ash from his position. Even so, with the help from his teammates, he could get a rough approximation of 1-inch ash's location. His attacks might all miss, but they would still seal off the areas where ghost boundaries could be placed. 1 step, 2 steps. Samsara's 4 players stayed together, and it looked like they would soon exit the range of the darkness boundary. Zhou Zekai didn't need to protect them for long. Su Macheng's dancing rain fired artillery shells at him to interfere. Tang Ru's soft mist dashed over. It looked like she wanted to body block Cloud Piercer's bullets. Troublesome. Zhou Zekai immediately had Cloud Piercer move. No matter what, he needed to stop 1-inch ash from placing down another ghost boundary. This moment was crucial. It's coming. 1-inch ash stopped moving. Only a tiny bit of it peeked out. He had a clear view and he was positioned at the right angle. He had finished casting his ghost boundary. He just needed to set it down. He swung his Takai and soft mist was just about to reach him. A gunshot. The ghost soul's power began to spread from 1-inch ash's blade. It's impossible. The stadium screens and the broadcast showed Cloud Piercer's perspective. There was no 1-inch ash in his line of sight. Tang Ru's soft mist had covered him completely. This bullet would definitely be blocked. Pooh! A hit. Blood spurted into the air from the bullet wound. Tang Ru didn't feel soft mist get hit, but then the ghost god's power began to fade from 1-inch ash's weapon. It hit. Caio Yifen himself couldn't believe it, but the wound on 1-inch ash was real. The damage wasn't much, but his ghost boundary had been interrupted. Where did the bullet come from? Caio Yifen was puzzled. Tang Ru was clearer than him. The bullet had gotten past soft mist, yet soft mist and 1-inch ash had been perfectly lined up. Curve firing. The stadium screens put on a slow-motion replay. Cloud Piercer had activated curve firing. The curve of the bullet had been extremely small. The extra time that it took for the bullet to curve was short enough that it could still reach 1-inch ash in time. If he had acted slightly slower, 1-inch ash wouldn't have been interrupted. Fortune had come. Even Zhou Zekai couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He had dealt with this predicament. The final step. Samsara's 4 characters finally rushed out from 1-inch Ash's darkness boundary. Their eyes finally saw the light of day when their screens suddenly turned black again. What? In that instant, the 4 on Samsara were wondering if their computers really had lost power. They had clearly seen the light. How could it have turned dark immediately afterwards? Even if 1-inch Ash's ghost boundary hadn't been interrupted, it couldn't have been another darkness boundary. He had cooldowns. Wait, Kaio Yifen's 1-inch Ash couldn't use darkness boundary again, which meant it had to be Ye Xiu. Lord Grim. Their screens had been dark, so how could they know what Ye Xiu was doing? And by the time Joe Zekai noticed it, it was too late. Ye Xiu's Lord Grim had patched up the gap, placing down his own darkness boundary. Samsara had overlooked another person, and this time it was Ye Xiu, the person who they should never overlook. But the pro players could completely understand. No matter how amazing Joe Zekai was, he was only one person. Happy had put up a nearly impenetrable defense for 1-inch Ash. He had miraculously interrupted him with a curved firing. There hadn't been any time for him to look at Ye Xiu's Lord Grim, even if just a glance. That bastard was simply too shameless. He had added a ghost boundary to his umbrella, darkness boundary, dual linking ghost boundaries. The pro players looked towards Team Void's 2 ghost blades. Because this was exactly like Team Void's signature move, including the unexpectedness of it. Of Team Void's ghost blade duo, Ye Xiu's Crying Devil was a standard phantom demon, primarily using ghost boundaries. On the other hand, Wu Yu's Carved Ghost was a hybrid class. What ghost boundaries he used were a mystery in every match. In the pro scene, Wu Yu's Carved Ghost was absolutely the craziest about resetting his skill tree. Every single match, he would reset his skill tree. No one knew which ghost boundaries he would coordinate with Ye Xiu in their dual linking ghost boundaries. Wasn't this sort of unexpectedness the same as what Ye Xiu's Lord Grim was giving to Samsara? Right after exiting a darkness boundary, Samsara's 4 had entered another darkness boundary.